We had a PowerPoint put together, but since we're in the times we're in, I gave everybody a printout of that. Has everybody got that?
I think so.
Hold on one second. Okay, because of the logistics, Tambra, you have a housekeeping rule on saying yes, no, or whatever?
So what we were gonna do, and we don't have everybody up here yet, so we don't have a quorum to look like to call this
Why don't we?
work session to order.
We've
Who-
got a quorum, we just don't have.
Who are we
Okay,
missing?
we do 5. Yeah, we do. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, because you're over here. We can't see Sherry.
Sherry, do you have your audio on or your video and audio on?
There she is.
There she
There,
is,
okay.
okay. There it is.
Can't hear her though.
Okay, so I sent out an email the other day, what we would do, like,
Tell them.
They're on mute. Oh, on mute.
so the other day, what we'll do when we discuss an agenda item is go down the normal roll call so that everybody has a chance to ask a question, because last time, because there is a delay in what you're saying and when it conveys here, he may have already moved on to the next agenda item, and you also have a question because of that lag. So we're gonna go down the line like you would in a roll call, so that everybody has an opportunity to ask a question. If you don't have one, you can just pass. Then were you gonna go back again, or just have them hold up the blue folder, so everybody's got their
If
blue
there's a
folder?
question, they can hold their blue.
So if you have an additional question after we've gone through the roll, then hold up your blue folder and I will let him know so that he knows to call back on you.
And we'll go in the normal order. Lambert, you'll be last every time, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Hope I don't have to move.
Does everybody understand that procedure?
Scotty?
Michael, do not hold up a folder while you're driving. Hold your
Okay.
thumb up, that's good.
Okay,
Okay. All right, can everybody hear us?
I don't think you need to yell because.
I just want to know.
I know,
Can
but-
everybody hear us?
Yes, and it works just like we're all in a room together, so nobody has to yell.
Sorry. Okay, Jake, you're
No, I'm
on.
not saying that to you, I'm just saying that we don't have to speak extra loud.
Okay.
Well, I'm extra loud anyway because I'm deaf, so I apologize in advance. Everybody says he's not angry, he's just loud.
Go, Jerry.
All right, I've got this presentation. I'm gonna start with this one if y'all follow along with me. 5101-103 is deputy starting out adjustment salary. The first thing that I'm trying to do is adjust our starting pay and our deputy salary through the board so we can retain staff. This morning I got a number, our last pay period prior to this one, we were at $83,392. We are now full staffed and not having to pay a whole lot of overtime because we're full staffed. We're not having to call people in on calls and stuff of that nature. With the on call, with all the overtime, we were $83,392. This last pay period, we're at $69,082. I'm not a math genius, but just the payroll itself for 26 pays, that's $364,000 a year if we're staffed. So, with that being said, I'm trying to get the starting pay up to $16 an hour. That's a $2 pay raise. We are now at $14. That also makes me competitive with other counties around us. Scott County just went to 15. Lexington is at 16.45 with shift differentials up to 17.45. This also helps me hire staff from other facilities with experience. I've had several phone calls through my 6 months now as the jailer is, I'd like to come to work for you, but I can't come for that pay from other facilities. This makes where I can hire laterals if I can get the starting pay to 16. Any questions on that?
Would that raise your whole ladder?
Yes. It'd be a $2 raise across the board instead of a percentage. And that helps me retain my people that's been there 4 or 5 years as well.
And what's that percentage? Do you know that?
Yes. Don't quote me at the exact, but it's 4.6, 4.7. Is that right?
Roughly, yes.
Roughly. This also helps with, we don't have hazardous duty, which we know we beat that to death, but this helps retain staff.
JW has a question.
JW, go ahead, sir. Squire, I'm sorry.
When you say $2 across the board, Jake, I'm looking at your pay scale here. Some of it's $3. To,
And what are you referring to, Squire?
well, captain's a $3 raise. Lieutenant's a $3 raise.
I see what you're talking, that's a typo. It would be,
Ship commander's a $3 raise. That's what I was looking at.
shift commander,
Starts at 17
Were you including?
17,
to 19.
19. And it's now to 20. You're correct, it must be a typo, Squire. It's $2 is what we're looking for, not 3. You see what he's saying?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
My apologies. I see it. It's a typo. It should be 2. All these over on the right column, the new starting pay should go down, excluding the first line or whatever, the 1 and the 3 should go down $1. We will fix that. I took, Jella Rogers' pay scale, which he did a good job of starting, but I really condensed it because we go by salaries and pay raises by rank instead of job titles, because I have several people with rank that have multiple job titles. So I took a pay scale that was this big and got it down to this big. But that is a typo. Thank you for pointing that out, Squire.
I've got a question.
Sir?
I'm supposed to be last at asking these, but at this point, you don't know where it's gonna put us on the percentage then, do you?
Well, it's 4.6, 4.7. I don't
Even
exact.
correcting them?
Yes, sir.
Even with correct, that's a typo.
Okay.
Any more questions on the pay raises? This is my first time too, so if you have a question, please ask. The next item that I've got on here is the vehicle. We gave our vehicle up last year in reference to getting something fixed in the jail. I thought it was the right thing to do. And I needed a vehicle last year, but now I really need one. I have 2 of my transport vehicles are over 200,000 miles. And what I need is a minivan to transport 2 or 3 inmates at a time instead of having to take a 10-passenger van. And let's save some fuel and take a 4-cylinder or a V6 rather than a V8. Does that make sense? And that vehicle's somewhere around $35,000 equipped with the cage and the safety equipment.
Do you have to have sirens?
I do not have to have sirens. I do put one little light in it, and I put a cage and a radio. And then on the state contract, what we're looking at is the Ford smaller van. It's a Transit Connect, and on the state contract with it suited out is right at that.
Okay.
I can't be. I will be upfront and be honest. I can't be exact because the 21 numbers aren't out, but he told me to add 10%, but it should be less than that. So I'm figuring somewhere coming in around 33, but I'd rather be safe than sorry.
Sure. Understand. Ask for questions.
Any questions, Squires?
All right, done.
JW.
Well, last year when we were discussing a vehicle, they had to be 4-wheel drive, and now it doesn't need to be 4-wheel drive now, or I mean.
That's a good question,
Same
Squire. This vehicle will be on all-wheel drive instead of a 4-wheel drive. The county gave me a 4-wheel drive truck. My vehicle's 4-wheel drive. We have a couple 4-wheel drives. I wasn't in last year's budget meeting. I see where they say that. They wanted another Ford Explorer. I think we need one for transport rather than, in a Ford Explorer you transport 2. In a minivan you transport up to 5, and it's all-wheel drive. My opinion is that's a better idea. Nothing against last year's. That's just the way, the direction I'd like to go.
Okay.
Any other questions? The next one's data processing. We're looking at facial recognition through our booking system through the jail. We wanted to do this last year and we didn't get to do it. It's basically a system where we scan somebody's face before they get released out the door. This will cut down on inadvertent releases, which I haven't had yet, thank God. But I want to make sure we don't have it. This is a very good tool too. And it's also, they're talking about having a scanning process in that too, of helping with data processing of the citations that the officers are writing.
So would that help identify somebody that has a case history in another county? If they're brought in from Franklin County Court, does that look at, identify this person and then bring up some more things that you need to be aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. It's mainly for, once that person becomes established in the computer with that, it will help booking in when they come in. They'll scan them and it'll put a little bit of information in there, but most importantly, everybody will be scanned before they get released and make sure it is that person that matches that paperwork.
Do they get scanned when they come in?
And it helps with false IDs eventually. You'll have to make sure they're put in the system and scanned, and then, we have people that come back to jail. So it's gonna take a little while to get the scanning for the entrance done, if that makes sense. But everybody going out will get scanned and booked, and then a year or two down the road, it's gonna be very beneficial to us. What'd you say, Chief?
It'll prevent, giving false information to the rest of the
We
officers.
get that a lot.
And instead of, for Tamara, for example, if she got arrested and said she was, Susie Q, well, we do the facial recognition, we find out she's Tamara.
Well, I don't mean to cut you off, but when I was a police officer, every once in a while I'd get a false name and I'd have to wait for a fingerprint to come back. Well, now this would be instant for the police officers too. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let Chief talk about medical, because these are his numbers. Is that okay with you all? Or you have any questions about the scanner?
We're still paying for 24-hour medical care with this current line item and the numbers that are involved in it. We have a $75,000 cost pool that SHP gives us for medical tests, prescriptions, everything that is involved in the medical line item. However, every year, we keep having to move money into that line item to cover medical costs. I think last year we had 6 high-risk pregnancy females in the hospital within a couple months of each other. And that cost an outrageous amount of money. We burned up the $75,000 cost pool within the first quarter of this current fiscal year we're in today. So our best guesstimate with what we've currently seen in the history of the medical line item itself is that we have to put more money in there, because all we're doing is raping other line items that need to have funding. So we have put in another $73,000, and we're hoping that a lot of that's coming back. But medical costs are going through the roof all the time. We can't control them, and they're hard to guesstimate. But this is the best number we can come up with right now.
This one's hitting a moving target. We can't control what comes in the back door and what medical conditions they have. But we also try to call the judges as soon as possible and get those people out of custody when possible. And the judges have been great of assisting me since I've been the jailer of doing that when possible. Any questions? Sir?
Judge Shepard called me the other day and we talked about some type of legislation, and I thought it was moving through the process of allowing those that come into our jails that are on Medicaid, for Medicaid to cover their expenses while they're in the jail. Have you heard of anything on that?
No, sir. We currently pay Medicaid rates for all costs, but that's it. For Medicaid to take over the entire bill for an inmate, they have to be admitted to the hospital for at least 24 hours. But we're on the hook for the first
We
thousand.
pay the first day, right? Or first
First
thousand.
The first 1,000, first day, what?
First
Pay the
$1,000.
first $1,000.
Okay, okay. So Medicaid does cover an inmate after
24 hours.
After 24 hours.
Yes, sir, but a lot of times,
Is that 24 hours once they're admitted, 24 hours if there is an issue?
once they're admitted. And
Okay,
majority,
so that is helpful then, okay. Because that was Judge Shepherd's concern that we're covering this.
We never, I myself personally don't call a judge until we find out if they're gonna be admitted or not. And sometimes the judge will let them out and sometimes they won't. Most of the time, they've worked really well with us. So,
Okay, all right.
any other questions, Squires? Next item I'll talk about, because I have firsthand experience with the 510136 contracted housing. This is where we have inmates housed in other counties for reasons. There's a House Bill 120 is out of Scott County, and sad to say this is because of an inmate of ours, and it's actually my arrestee on a homicide. There's a House Bill up right now that basically says if a judge orders an inmate to another facility, that jailer can name his price basically per day, up to $100 a day. Right now, we're paying somewhere in the ballpark of $45 a day for an inmate in Scott County charged with homicide. It's one of my old cases. And that line item was somewhere in, you'll have to look at what was the line item last year? I think it was somewhere around $7,000, don't quote me on it, but last year it was $5,000. We went through that in a hurry with this inmate over there, so we've already had to move money in 2020's budget. The $35,000 there may be a little high. I can't predict how long this guy's gonna be in that jail before he gets either sentenced or tried or what. This number may be a little heavy, but I'd rather be heavy and give it back to you than have to come and ask you for money, because quite honestly, this guy cannot come back to Franklin County until he is sentenced and sent to prison or released. I'm not saying he's guilty or innocent yet until he goes through his process, but he can't be housed in Franklin County. And this is judge ordered. I have no choice in it.
Do you sometimes trade
We
inmates?
do.
But
We
this
do.
isn't that case?
This isn't that case. I do have a Scott County inmate, but this guy is high risk. He is a handful, and they deserve $45 a day. Mr. Jailer Brules over there does. And I have I have one of his inmates right now, and I can't charge him for it. He's not a problem. So I charge him the normal state rate of $31.34. We're hoping that goes up in the near future, but you know, right now, I'm not sure. They do have a bill on for if you do certain things with classifications, with classes and earning certain things, your rate goes up, but it's still in the early stages. And we're set up for that with our training and class programs with Lieutenant Mulder to get our rates up with that inmate.
So this was at 7,000?
It was at 7, and we jumped it to 35. It's a pretty good jump, but we weren't aware. I wasn't here last year, but they weren't aware that they were gonna have an inmate with a signed order, and when a circuit judge signs an order, we don't have a choice. It is what it is. You can argue with him all you want, but you're not gonna win. And there's been several of them this year.
So what have you spent so far through March in this line?
I don't have.
So
I don't
what's
have
been
that in front
spent
of
so far in that line, $7,400? And back in 19, $5,900 was spent in that line.
Okay. Okay, is there-
Yeah, if you look at what
okay, I was looking.
That's on,
I got so much stuff here.
I believe that's on Susan's paperwork,
Yeah, that's what I was looking, I didn't see Susan's paperwork, so.
and I don't have that in front of me. I'm
Okay,
sorry, I can
so-
get back to you.
So let me ask you this question, so is that, you're saying there's a difference in last year and this year and how they're handled, or what? So
No.
why a $28,000 jump?
Because this guy wasn't in their custody for all of last year's. he wasn't in their custody in this bill. What I'm scared of is they pass this bill, 120, then Mr. Broyles over in Scott County can charge me instead of $45 an hour, he can charge me $100 a day.
Okay.
Not an hour a day.
Let's say, okay, so if we kept it in here right now, just let it go, and then today's the last day, I believe, aren't they voting on today? If it doesn't pass, we can come back and change that.
I'm not sure, sir.
So let's, if you would follow that and let us know what's happens with that bill, because if that bill is causing us to jump this $28,000, and that bill doesn't pass, then that.
There's also that, and there's also that this inmate wasn't over there the full year last year. He's more than likely gonna be there the full year this year, coming
Okay.
into.
Okay.
We can bring it down.
And I'm hoping it isn't that much.
Yeah, right.
But I don't know for sure. I'd rather give it back to you than have to come and say, Susan, I need to move some money.
Okay, so let's just tag that line.
I'm fine with that.
As a watch line, to see where that goes, okay?
Thank you, sir.
Yes,
Any
sir.
other questions?
I do have one question. So it was court ordered to go to Scott County, no other counties, court ordered to
Court
go to
order.
Scott.
Yes, I have several that are court ordered in Woodford County. I have no control over. Now, me and Woodford County have a pretty good agreement where I help her, she helps me. Woodford County doesn't charge me. And then I can hold her inmates too, and we work side by side together. The last couple weeks ago, they signed an order to send an inmate over there, and Jailer Rankin was very upset and told me she was gonna start sending me a bill. I went over and talked to her, immediately drove over to Woodford County and had a sit down with her. But she can decide to do that anytime she wants, but right now, we're good. But if circuit judge signs an
So,
order, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
It's okay. What I was just trying to determine, is this a typical practice from the judicial side to remain somebody into custody in another county and specify the county?
It's not normal,
It's not normal, but it's happening
quite frequently.
quite frequently, and it's happening all across the state. I've talked to several jailers with KJA, and they're having the same issues. And I'm not being mean or.
So my question is, so the question on my side is does an executive branch agency have the right to go back and approach the bench and inquire about this to ensure we could possibly get this inmate to another facility that might be more willing to work with us in a financial way?
We've attempted.
We've attempted that.
You all would have
Squire.
more experience with that than I would.
We've attempted that, Squire. This particular inmate was at Woodford County when the order was signed. Because Woodford County does not charge me at this moment to house other inmates. We trade and help each other like it should be throughout the state. But when the order was signed, he was sent to Scott County. Darren Broyles is the jailer, did not like it, but the judge signed it. And he charges me $45 a day. And I have to pay it.
Is that all he can charge unless this House bill goes through?
$100 a day.
If the House bill goes through, it's $100 a day.
What's the limit he can charge right now?
There is no limit.
This is actually setting a limit.
Oh, okay.
I don't like this either, but it's the times we're in. I want him to plead guilty and be done. It's my case.
Well, we're kind of probably stepping on some grounds we may not
Yeah.
want to be stepping on here.
Yeah, I agree with the judge. We need to just watch this line.
Yeah, we're gonna have better understanding.
And I'm totally okay
in
with
the
that. I'm
future
just
on
trying to
this.
prepare for it.
Scotty held up something blue, I don't know if he had a question.
He's
Oh,
reading the
okay,
paper.
okay.
Are we ready to go to the next one? The next one's pretty simple. It's food service equipment. It's a gas stove that needs to be replaced. It's 1995 was the last time it's been in service since 1995. Half of it works. A griddle, 99. It's $1,000, $999. Only half the griddle service works. It's just old equipment in the kitchen that needs to be replaced.
What about ESG to going through this energy program?
That's a possibility. But, you know, I mean, I need this now, and I'm not sure when ESG is gonna kick in. If that makes sense? And it's not a whole lot of money. Last year, it's $12,000 or $13,000 with a dishwasher, and this is $3,000 that needs to be done.
Last year was 30,000.
Yeah, and you know, you got to remember, we on normal circumstances, we feed 300 inmates a day, 3 times a day. It's 900 meals a day. If this goes down, you know, we're limited to what we do.
So what do you have left in your, in a budget line that you could get, that you could go on and get it this year with?
Well, we've done a ton of work in the kitchen this year. We've done a lot. Let's see, let me find that line of food services. I had $3,000, I believe.
It says unencumbered at 20,
2,300.
These are seasonal?
No, we don't have Susan's on
No,
the list.
I don't have the VIP in front of me.
Yeah, I've got a current financial report right here.
you got $2,300, $2,300.
We've done a lot, and then we did get a grant, and we got that in just recently that Ann helped us, and we have mats, rubber mats all through the kitchen now, so nobody slips. That was through the grant, but I don't have enough in this line item for the rest of the year to do what we need to do. So we're planning to do it after July.
Well, you've got, okay. Yeah. All right, another item to kind of check on, we might be able to get it through in another, even this year for you.
It's possible, but
Okay. All right. Ask if there are any other questions.
you have any other questions, Squires? Thank you. Talk about the revenue for a second. Court cost is going up to $26,000, increase from 14.5.
Why is that the case? Why is it almost doubling?
We were under the understanding that there was a mandate by the state that set it at 14.5. Susan says it's 26, and that's what our current projections are showing is going to be 26.
So there's a state mandate that it's 26 then, is what you're saying?
No, sir, opposite, 14.5.
Okay. So if we get more than 14.5, we're able to take it, is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Questions? The next one's kind of big for me, and I've learned a lot about this year. This is the state inmate housing. This is a very, very competitive market, I've learned. I have a part-time and a full-time lieutenant out there that constantly are trying to trade inmates. Right now, we're not trading any inmates. With the COVID-19, we're on shutdown. But whether it's the virus or not, they're very hard to come by. And we try to stay very competitive and stay after, Bell County not too long ago had an issue at their jail, and we tried to go get some of their state inmates. We're constantly trying to get new inmates. The budget line for the previous administration was 1.8. We're going to be about 1.6 at the end of the year. COVID is not helping this because it's pretty much shut. There's no trading of any inmates right now, no movement. The pardon of the prior governor didn't help any. We lost some inmates. Right now, our numbers are, just to give you an idea, 2 weeks ago we were right at 300 inmates. We were at 225 when we left the jail to come down here. We lost 75 inmates, which is a good thing right now. It's giving more space for the virus and stuff of that nature, but it's revenue. And it is what it is. So next year I'm planning to hit a number that we can hit. It's hard to get state inmates, but we're still going to stay aggressive for revenue as long as I'm the jailer. But the number is a real number. We're going to do 1.6 this year. It's going to be hard again next year to get state inmates. So the real number for me is 1.6 instead of 1.8.
So the question is right now, you brought in about, according to me looking at the budget, 1,159,000. It's a little south of that, but rounded up, it's 1,159,000. So you think you're gonna make basically 450,000 more in the next 3 months
No.
to hit 1.6?
Probably not with this COVID. I mean, I can't trade inmates right now.
We started working on this budget.
So, I'm sorry, so, in looking at the state housing, you've specified state housing here. What are we doing about, federal inmates? Because I know some jails across the Commonwealth, you know, even travel to Tennessee and to Indianapolis and other places to
That's my,
pick up federal prisoners because it is certainly more lucrative to
It-
house them.
it's a good question.
So this specifies only state housing, so I just want to touch on that.
it's the next line item down, Squire. In your packet, it's the next line item, is the federals.
You're right, you're right.
Good
I see it,
news,
but I also see it on a downward trend. I'm sorry, I had a note here just
It
to ask
is.
about that.
I'm-
I jumped the gun, I apologize.
I'm hoping that changes. I was a sworn U.S. Marshal when I was a deputy sheriff, and I made a contact, with the lady that's kind of been in charge of inmates. Transferred to that position was the lady that swore me in. So I made a connection. She helped us out yesterday. Her name's Melissa Smith. She helped us out yesterday because we had a problem with inmates getting something IT. So I got their IT hooked up with our IT through Melissa. Melissa's gonna try to get us more federal inmates. But these numbers this year, we were contracted for 20 and we stayed around 18. I'm gonna go after federal inmates as soon as this COVID's done. But real numbers are real numbers. We were down a little bit and I wanna hit what I can hit. I wanna come in here next year and go, hey, we're above. Instead of going, hey, we're below.
We found a way to renegotiate.
And we found another way to renegotiate the contract that cost a little bit of money. We're gonna talk about that later with you all. But, federal staff is not, you know, it's very tricky to work with, but it's down some and I hope to be aggressive and go after that. I think it's down 23, is it down $23,000 is what I looked at?
Yes.
So it's not a ton of money, but it's down. Who had a question?
Yeah, Levon, quick question. 1.6 on your state housing, is that a realistic number? Taking March completely out of it, were you on target at the end of February before this COVID-19 hit? It doesn't appear that you were. So is 1.6 obtainable?
Now, I don't know with this COVID because it's on lockdown, but prior to, I think it was. We were being very aggressive and we were up to a lot of state inmates in the dorm. That's kind of what I judge about. Those are the guys going out to work. It's not all the state inmates. We keep some in the jail too that can't work. But I kind of judge it by, we had 70 people in the dorm at one time and now we're down to 44. So yes, I believe we were gonna get there. I mean, maybe a little short, but real close to it. Now I don't think there's any way in the world we get to 1.6. But I have no control over not being able to transfer inmates right now. And they're letting them out like crazy.
No, I completely understand that. I'm just trying to be realistic. I mean, obviously, you know, the inflated numbers that have been presented to us, some of us in the past. So I'm just asking realistic,
Squire,
obtainable numbers.
I appreciate your question. I'm not trying to inflate numbers. I'm more of a realist. So I don't mean that towards anybody else, but I try to get as close as I can. Tax dollars are precious and I try to stay as close as possible.
We had numerous trades and works of it.
Yeah. Lieutenant Miller and Lieutenant McKeon are my Class D coordinators and they're constantly on the phone. It's like they're trading stock, trying to get inmates from other counties and areas. But right now it's tough. We have any other questions on that one? All right. now we're going back to expenses, which is the deputy's salary. We have 52 full-time, and we are full-staffed right now. I have a waiting list of applicants. First time I can say that in a very, very long time. The reason for that is Ron White is in charge of our hiring. He's staying aggressive. He's going to job fairs. We're being online a lot. This COVID has put some people in our doors because people are not working, and we're going to work. But that's all before the virus came out. We were still almost full staff. We've done a fantastic job with our hiring. The training seems to be working a little better. With the reverse I did the first day, they spend 12 hours on the floor with somebody and get to see what it really looks like. At the end of the day, we ask them if they want to stay. We lose one every time. Just goes, this ain't for me. But I save $1,000 in training for a week by them telling me that the first day. So it seems to be working.
Jalen Bond, quick question.
Sir?
At your job fairs, are the individuals made aware of what the starting salary is at the jail?
Yep, yes, sir. We had one at the library 2-3 weeks ago. Don't quote me on the time. I went down and visited for a little while. We're at $14 an hour. Lexington is set up right beside us at 16 something an hour. I still hired one person from it though.
Did you get any other applicants?
One or two. I think we hired one from it. You know, when you go to Chick-fil-A and make $16 an hour, it's kind of hard to compete at 14. So, any other questions on that one? The training incentive is next. That went down a little bit because of my tenure versus Joe Rogers' tenure. So that saved us $2,100. Custodial supplies stayed the same. Prisoner clothing has stayed the same. These items were moved at the request of Susan to a different line item to be cleaner for the audit. Is there any questions on that? Because I hope if Susan's on here, she can answer those. The next one's printing stationery. It went up $2,000. The office staff, they haven't ordered paper in several years. It's time to order.
We order yearly.
It's just gone up. They haven't increased in over 5 years. This is the bond paperwork, memos, stuff of that nature. It's just body receipts. It's just inflated a little bit, so we had to make an adjustment. Communication equipment, that's radios. With us being full staff, radios get broke, and it's just a common thing that, you know, we're in law enforcement, we need radios. Any questions on radios? The specialty equipment is $10,000. That is staying the same as the year past.
No, that's the clean audit one again.
Do what?
That's a clean audit,
Yeah.
so we had to separate the 27.
Okay. The chief is telling me last year's budget, that was a $27,000 line item. It's been separated for audit reasons, but it's the same amount of money. It's just an additional line item to keep it cleaner for Susan. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Community programs, this is the big one. This is important. This is the loss of revenue out of canteen on the e-cigarettes. This is a new line item. This is so we can continue to do community service programs like mow grass all across the county. This will help pay for the mowers, the trailers. I don't foresee needing a vehicle to pull the mowers for a while, but we do need a new mower. We have 2 mowers. One's not that old, one is old. We're going to need another mower this year, and fuel, and this is basically make up revenue from the ordinance over the e-cigarettes.
What in the way of the minivan and the lawnmowers, is any of that you could buy out of commissary?
The vehicle purchase out of this would be a very gray area because It's gotta be for inmates.
Right.
And I don't wanna operate in the gray area, I want it to be clean. And then there's also another, bill going up to the Senate where right now, if commissary purchases it and it gets surplused, it should go back to commissary. Well, it's not doing that right now. So that's probably gonna get passed in the session. So until they get that done, and this is a new line item, this is a new thing for the jail. It may be a little high, but we don't know until next year. So I don't wanna take any community service away from the county.
So I have a question about, you've referenced at least twice in this part of the conversation, the loss of revenue from e-cigarettes. Can you tell us what that loss is?
It's about $9,000 a month. It's about $120,000. Now, it's hard for me to tell that. Last year, in 2019, it was $110,000 is what they made.
Are you adding anything else in there?
I
that can
am.
Supplement.
I am trying new products, and so is the commissary. It is like a nicotine pouch. It's spitless. It's not going to make this up. It's just this is the #1 seller we have. It's half of the revenue a month for commissary. I had a meeting with commissary captain today to make sure my numbers in my head were right. It's half of our monthly gross is e-cigarettes. It's hard I can't sit here and tell you it's that every day because a third of our inmates are indigent. So that our commissary does this. If you don't have money on your books, you can't order anything, you just get what comes free. But a third of our inmates are indigent. Like I said, this is a new line item. Next year, I hope to come back in here and go, hey, I only need this much. I didn't need this. But that right there is what we're looking at, we're losing from the e-cigarettes.
Well, jailer, I know the magistrates as well as me and you are grateful for the inmates out doing the work, but because they're being sequestered, I guess you might say, at this point in time, and can't come out, there's a lot of screaming and for help by community programs that have relied on you.
I understand, Your Honor, and your judge, and I hate that I had to shut that program down right now. But it come from the recommendation of the governor and DOC. When the head of DOC asks you to do something, it's probably a good idea if you want state inmates the next year. And I hate it. I'm sending an officer out to the senior citizens. When I have 3 contracted guys that go out to work for the state helps us with their salary. I have 3 of those, and I'm sending those out to senior citizens to help make up. All they're doing to senior citizens right now is making food and sending it. I don't mean that as all they do, but they're making food and sending it out to elderly. I'm sending one of my staff members there every day that I can. I've missed 1 day since then that I know of because I had 2 call in. But I send a staff member out there to help them because I feel terrible that we had to stop community service for this virus. But I had to do it for the safety of everybody.
Sure.
That's awesome.
And as soon as this virus is over, they will get back to work out there. I love helping the community. I did the numbers the other day without any benefits. The inmates do over almost $1.1 million a year in free labor at minimum wage. That's huge.
Yeah, sure is.
And that's been going on as long as I've been a part of the jail in my almost 20-year career. I don't want to be the one to stop it, but we got to fund it too. And commissaries funded it for quite a bit. So, and I want to keep doing that, but when you take your #1 seller and stop it, you got to find other avenues.
Well, we look to you to come up with some other ideas too, so I appreciate you looking into that already.
Sir?
Okay. Everybody knows.
Just a quick question.
I got 2 at one time.
During the last tenure for the jailer, he stated several times that program had grown since he went into office as jailer. Would it be possible to get a list of all the work sites that you currently have on the books?
Absolutely.
As far as which are detailed to.
They're 15, but I can get you a list, Squire Tracy. I asked for that same thing the other day. I knew I had inmates going everywhere, but I wanted it broke down so I could tell you all what we do. But there's 15 programs that we send inmates out to. And I will be glad to get you one of those emailed tomorrow, Chief.
Thank you.
And I have a two-part question.
Go ahead, Squire Moore.
What measures do you have in place if you have an outbreak at the jail? And tell us what a disaster that would be if you had an outbreak of COVID.
Well, the first thing we're gonna do is call the health department and follow some of their guidelines. With our numbers being down right now is gonna help because I have some empty pods, so I can quarantine. The inmate, we have done something, that it was an idea of a captain that I was grateful of. We've brought in 2 air scrubbers. They're basically huge, filter systems. I got one in the hallway, one in booking, and you're breathing condensed air at the jail. So we've leased those for a month, and we hope to get reimbursed by FEMA with those later down the road. But we did that first. But we're gonna contact the health department, we're gonna contact the judge's office, and we have a plan in place, and we're gonna execute it. But here's the thing about the plan. The plans change every day, I'm learning. So, first thing we're gonna do is quarantine, and we're gonna need some testing as soon as possible. But the health department, I've been in contact with, I can't remember her name to save my life right now, but the head of,
Judy Mattingly.
Miss Mattingly, I've been in touch with her and talked to her. I called the other day, I needed thermometers because I've got a new plan for new arrestees where they come into Sally Port, the arresting officer doesn't have to come into jail. My medical staff goes out, checks the temperature, checks the inmate before they enter my building. I still have a constitutional obligation to take inmates. The judges and the police department, the sheriff department, and KSP has been great about not bringing people in that doesn't need to be brought in right now. Our numbers are down, and I appreciate that. But I needed thermometers. I made 2 phone calls, and within 30 minutes, I had 3. And they're hard to find. I tried to buy them; they're sold out.
Yes.
So the health department and the courts they've been gracious. And I hate saying this, but we've been lucky. We've got 200. I got 170 bodies or so inside the jail right now, and we've been blessed. But we've done a really good job of cutting off visitations. The tablets have been great. Our tablet company gave them more visitation time. Tomorrow we're giving everybody pizzas. You got to keep them happy, or somehow. So, we have a plan in place, and I hope it works if we need it. I hope we don't need it. Thank you, sir. I hope we don't. But, and then I'm concerned about my officers. We put a new plan in place end of last week.
Yes, sir.
Officers get their temperature taken before they go on secure side of jail. If you're not moving inmates out, that's how it's gonna be brought in, is your officers. I got officers who live in other counties. So if their temperature is over 100, they get sent home.
Oh, yeah.
Jailer, we have 10 minutes.
I'm almost done.
Okay, 10 minutes, and as the court is aware, since they've gone through it last year, this is a draft, and there'll be other discussions as we move forward with the budget process. So if you could, thank you, sir.
No problem, I'm almost done. The last 2 things in the point out are just a bracket of the proposal of revenue and the expense proposal, and just a clear bracket for you that we've already went over through that. And then you have Susan's numbers here that give you a difference in the difference from last year to this year. I realize it's a little bit more. I do. I don't like asking for it at this time. But if we want to retain good staff with training that we're getting done, we have to pay them a little bit more. We are doing really well at hiring them. But now the important part is keeping them and not training them for other agencies. We're gonna have some staff come in and wanna be police officer or fireman. And that's gonna happen. It's been going on throughout the career of the jail. I'm one of those people that started there and went on. But if they give me a year or two, that's a year or two of an experienced officer. The more experienced your officers are and the training they have, the less lawsuits we're gonna have. No matter who's the jailer, there's gonna be lawsuits, like it or not. But you minimize them if you have experienced staff. When I started at the jail 20 years ago, 19 years ago, he was one of my supervisors. Everybody around me had 10 or 12 years in. Lawsuits were kind of like, didn't happen very often. You may remember that, Mr. Lambert. Now, we're in the liability business sometimes, and I don't like it, but our staff is younger and younger and younger with tenure because they go make more money somewhere else. I'm asking you as the court to help me with that. That's basically my presentation. It's my first one. I hope it was okay for you all.
It was fine, thank you.
And I just want to let the magistrates know that on the agenda for item 4, that's just a note, to have a way to note in the minutes that we did receive his proposed budget, and that's why there was nothing in the agenda books.
Okay.
Any questions? Thank you all for your time. I'd also like to thank, I've heard from most of you all, and Squire Sebastian brought us some donuts. I'm not gonna, if y'all wanna bring us some donuts, you can bring us some donuts too, but we really appreciate that. But most of you have called and asked what you can do to help through this time, and I truly appreciate that.
Okay. Any other questions?
I brought those on behalf of everybody now.
You did, and everybody loved them, but I don't know where they came from, but they were fantastic.
I can tell you what, yes.
Okay.
Fantastic, I got them at fees.
Okay, any other questions? If not, Jailer Bonner, thank you, appreciate your budget. And you're gonna be back here. If you will stick around, we'll kind of put you, once we start, no, I'm sorry, we gotta go for the work session, he's gonna have to come back.
What time do you want me to call in? Right as soon as I get back?
Ask him.
Yeah, if you just want to come in and listen.
So I have a question about the work session today. Even though we're going to get to all the items on there, I don't know what staff are present and kind of hanging around and waiting. Can we move them on the agenda so that they can do whatever it is they need to do and then go on?
We do not have any staff in the building to present. The staff will all be in the go-to meeting, available for voiced conversation.
We do have Terry Bradshaw who's coming in physically with her budget, and we do
Chief
have
just signed in.
Tommy Russell here too.
Chief just signed in.
Yeah, so we have several staff online.
So my
already.
question is, again, I just want to get back to that. If they're not in the building, can we get to what the staff needs to do and then they can be released from the meeting?
The staff is throughout the entire agenda, so they can leave the meeting whenever they feel like they need to leave it, so.
Yeah, looks like there's
The staff know what they need to do
Yeah.
they know,
Yeah.
so they're good.
all right,
Thank you all for
Okay,
your
thank
time.
you. Appreciate
I'm
it.
gonna call in when I
Thank
get back
you.
to the jail.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's call the Franklin County Fiscal Court meeting for March the 26th, 2020 to order. This is the work session for the court. We have a couple. Is Brittany Woodward, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, Brittany, would you talk to the court about the 2019 Solid Waste Annual Report, and then we'll go into some other areas too.
Sure. Okay, so I prepared the Solid Waste Annual Report, which is turned into the Division of Waste Management every year. It basically goes over everything that was done within the solid waste management area. It includes municipal solid waste collection, any kind of funding that the county received or revenue that was made, and any kind of programs that we put on, basically. So just gonna give you a brief summary, of everything of all the data that was collected. So in 2019, our landfill diversion rate, which is how much solid waste we're actually keeping out of the landfill, that number did decrease and about 5%. And this is based on recycling totals. As y'all know, what was allowed to be collected was changed by Lexington sometime in the spring and summer. So we are not collecting as much recyclable items. So that led to a decrease in recycling tonnages. We also kept about on par with yard waste collection. I believe in 2018, that was when there was an emergency response. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I've been able to attribute the doubling in yard waste for 2019 or for 2018 to. So if you look at that table, you all should have, that explains that jump. But we were about 18.3% total for diversion rate in 2019. So for the voucher program, we talked about this back in January. We did see a jump in the voucher redemption rate since we moved the landfill voucher program sign up online. So now we're seeing about a 99% voucher redemption rate, meaning everyone who signs up for a voucher utilizes that voucher, which was a difference compared to about 80% redeemed in the past, where people would have to come down and we'd utilize staff time and staff resources to set up these vouchers. Now that it's all online, we're seeing an increase in actual participation and redemption rates. That's not to say that we will not help anybody who comes down, granted in a normal time. We would still help whoever needs help signing up for that program. And let's see, less than 20% of users who are registered in the system used more than 2 vouchers in 2019. So about 80% of people only utilized 1 or 2. When it comes to the grant programs with the State Division of Waste Management, the litter abatement grant, those funds were utilized in part for a new solid waste website that I'm still working on, but it is going to be the hub of all solid waste events and information and good community resources for residents to view and kind of just understand what's going on in the community and how they can do their part to help keep our community clean. Other funds were used on advertising and education programs, and personnel and disposal costs made up the rest. The city picked up about 153 miles of roadway, which attributed to 2017 bags. And I know you're probably thinking, well, why the city is mentioned, but the city of Frankfort does not currently apply for this litter abatement grant. So all of the city road miles actually fall on the county to take care of. But the city does have a crew out that goes and picks up litter, so we were able to include their numbers for that. The jail inmates picked up many more road miles that are not listed, but they're not listed because we don't have an accurate number of miles right now. It's primarily just based on the vehicle log and not the actual number of miles that were spent picking up litter. Squire Blackburn?
Yes, hey, do you think we could get the staff that are with the jail personnel to get that app and use it so we can log all that?
Yeah, we've had some talks about it since I've been putting this together, and we're working on it. Let's see. So in total for 2019, we're able to account for about 157 miles, 2,158 bags, about 207.5 hours worked between the road department and solid waste personnel. Let's see, moving into the compost program. The first 6 months of 2019 was the end of the initial 3-year pilot program that was arranged with the Division of Waste Management, primarily focusing on growing and maintaining the livestock compost pad, introducing regular residential yard waste disposal options, and the start of zero waste community events. And all 3 goals were met. The second 3-year phase began halfway through 2019, and we're focusing on 3 additional goals, which are stabilizing that yard waste program, creating a more consistent zero waste community program, and finding ways to provide residents with the finished compost product, essentially closing the loop here. In 2018, in 2018, 2019 grant cycle or fiscal year, funds were utilized to purchase an industrial sifter, which is up at the pad, and it's used to screen the finished compost product to remove any larger bones that hadn't disintegrated and rocks and things like that, as well as industrial scales and some educational materials. For the 2019-2020 fiscal year, the grant cycle, so far those funds have been utilized to begin the process for these residential compost giveaways. And so I bought some supplies, mainly bags, and we're working on some printed material to go with those bags when we give away finished compost, and radio advertising for compost drop-off services. In 2019, a total of about 760, give or take, maybe 3 animals were composted, equating to about a $26,000 savings in landfill tipping fees. And we had about 750 residents participate in the Yard Waste Wednesday program, which ran for 32 Wednesdays, and it equated to about 860 drop-offs. I do have a total tonnage. I think it was about 615 total tons of yard waste collected between Yard Waste Wednesdays and curbside limb pickup. And last but not least, we get into our environmental education. Bluegrass Green Source did a lot of our education programs in 2019. They were contracted with grant funds and through an agreement with Central Kentucky Hauling in our hauling contract to provide recycling education and programs for school children and for residents. 474 students were reached through waste reduction and litter education activities associated with Green Source. They also put on an educator training later in the year, which provided teachers with lesson plans and curriculum to impart on their students if they wanted to provide their own programs or their own lessons outside of just the general trainings. The solid waste department had presence at a few different community events, including Reforest and Farm City Field Day. Before my time, I believe Blair presented to a couple different conferences, mainly solid waste coordinator, quarterly conferences. And at the end of 2019, Billy Joe and myself had started receiving quite a few calls from other counties interested in our livestock compost pad. So he and I have been very busy teaching other counties how to set up a pad and how to run it. So that's about all I've got for the annual report.
Okay, any questions? Any questions for Brittany?
Square Muller?
Yeah, I would just like to say thank you, Brittany, for everything that you've been doing. I know you're working hard. I just want to let the other court know that the judge and I attended. She had her first task force meeting. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Judge, there was probably 8 people there. It was very productive. And the meeting consisted of a lot of looking at goals and what's the purpose and what can be done, better in the future. So it's a working task force. And Judge, if you want to add anything, I'd be happy to hear it.
Yeah, I thought you were going to speak to this because this was your idea, which I fully agreed and think is hugely important, and that's to go to the schools and get young people to be on this task force as well, Squire.
No, that is correct. We had talked about, reaching out to maybe 1 or 2 Western Hill students and 1 or 2 Franklin County students. And obviously KSU, they've been involved a little bit in the past. But yes, that would be very beneficial because we keep talking and the task force just that it's a little bit older and it's been around a long time. And so our thoughts were, let's get some young people involved and use some of their ideas and see what we can do even better. So just I want to say thank you to Brittany.
Scotty.
Go ahead.
I think that's
Scotty.
a great idea.
Scott.
Scotty has a question. Go ahead, Scotty.
I'd just like to make a comment in regards to the roadside litter pickup. I'd like to thank both the current and past jailer, the jail staff, and the inmates that have been great to work with in regards to District 4 roadside cleanup program. It's been great. It really has. So I just want to thank Brittany and like I said, the jail staff, the inmates, and like I said, both past and current jailer.
Okay, Sherry.
You have to say a little bit louder. I can hear you.
Sherry.
I just wanted to give kudos to Squire Muller. I think that's a great idea. Any way we can get our youth, who seem to want to put their hands in the right place and their hearts are definitely already there. It's great to extend our hand to give them the opportunity to be part of this task force.
JW, do you have a comment, question? He's good. Lambert?
Brittany, do you know where or when, what county they're gonna have tire amnesty this year?
Yes. Give me just a second. I have a whole schedule. I'm pulling it up right now. I know that Franklin counties won't be until fall of 2021. Okay, let's see. Now keep in mind, this may change with everything that's going on.
Yeah.
We've already received a few emails about how they're having to postpone a couple events. But the closest ones to Franklin County would probably be in Bath and Montgomery County. They're doing, this spring, they're supposed to be taking care of the Cumberland Valley, Gateway, Big Sandy, and Kentucky River area development districts.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have a question? Sherry.
So just to follow up on that, Brittany, who's taking care of the bluegrass ad? We're in bluegrass ad, not any of the ones you just mentioned.
Right, so the Bluegrass ad won't have their collection events until fall 2021.
when we do it. Okay, all right,
Right.
just trying to be, thank you.
Okay, Scott.
Yeah, the state receives, so much money from the sale of each tire, and that money is what's utilized to put on these waste tire collection events. Any resident of the state is allowed to go to any of these events. They don't have to go to the one that is specifically for their county.
Do you have those dates for Bath and Montgomery County?
I'm sorry?
Do you have the dates for Montgomery County, Bath County?
I don't. The only thing that they gave us at the training that I had, I don't think I have it, but if I do find something, I will.
Yeah, look that up, Brittany, if
Okay,
you
pass
would,
it
look
on.
that up for everybody and get that out,
Yeah,
please.
I'm sure it'd be a while yet, so just make sure you let us know.
It looks, now that I flipped through my binder a little bit, it looks like, the one in Bath County was about 2 weeks ago, unfortunately. And then the other ones that are in the Gateway ad, which is the closest development district to us, let's see. They're all gonna be impacted by what's going on.
Okay. None in Nepal then?
So, yeah, as soon as things kind of return to some semblance of normal, and the state gets that information out, I'll make sure to publish it, in case residents do want to travel to a different, development district.
Okay, thank you.
Scotty has a question.
And who,
Scotty.
go ahead, I can't see.
Go ahead, Scotty.
She answered it. She answered
Okay.
it. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay, hearing no other questions, let's go to the next item. Thank you, Brittany, for your presentation and your work on our grants. And you're, as a matter of fact, you're coming back in just a moment, so we'll get with you.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Majesties, the other day, the city adopted a policy that, Tommy, I've got you here to kind of go over, but they're basically going to pay their employees a 10% stipend for coming if they're called in to work. All public safety employees are going to get a 10%, I guess you call it a stipend or bonus, for working through this cycle. And anybody other than department heads will also get this if and only if they're called into work. Is that correct, Tommy?
Yes, if they're called away from home.
The reason I bring this to you is that obviously our public safety people, obviously our staff hears this and wants to know where we are with it. And I have told the department heads that we would put it on the agenda and we would have a discussion based on what the city did on Monday night. So I open the floor for a discussion, and Tommy's here that can answer any way out, the best you can, where the city's going with it.
Okay, Michael.
Tommy, can you tell me what the federal FEMA guidelines are in a case like this?
With the,
FEMA guidelines,
oh,
any reimbursement?
that's a good one, Squire Muller, because the simple fact that we've never been here, and I'm not sure that the 10% will qualify. I can't answer that one way or the other. There will be a lot of fleshing out on FEMA reimbursement in this whole pandemic, what's going to be reimbursable, what's not. So, you know, whether the 10% is, they're already, if they're drawing overtime, FEMA reimbursement is allowable. But I can't answer on the extra 10%, to be honest with you. And I don't even want to venture a guess which way that would go. I have I have asked Ann to track everything related to this pandemic and this declaration of emergency, because my guidance from KYM was, yes, track it all. And then we'll have to sort it out as we go through this thing. So that's what we're doing.
So Judge, I guess a question for you. Does this only apply to people that are working on emergency?
Well, there's no apply at all because we haven't done anything,
That
so.
was gonna be my question.
Yeah.
If they got called outside of their normal, it wouldn't be in their normal work, would it?
Yes, for
So-
a public service,
Well, if the road department went out,
Yes.
They
They
would-
had to
If-
leave their home.
If they are at home, if they've been directed, the city's stance on this was if they were directed to work from home or could work from home or sent home for the fact that we're trying to create social distancing and, we had a storm in the night or whatever it was, and John Mitchell had to call in some guys, and his guys would be available for a 10% increase in pay for the hours that they were out and about working, not for the duration, but only for the times they were out and about away from home.
But I thought, the little bit I've looked into it, it is only applicable if it has to do with the emergency, not everyday duties,
No.
correct?
Only during this emergency time period, right, Tommy?
The city, and I can only tell you what the city's done. If they call you away from your home, like, whatever, if I need more transit drivers, I need more sanitation guys, then if we staff another sanitation truck, then those guys are eligible for the 10% increase in pay. Is that emergency? No, but it's deemed as essential services to maintain continuity of government, public perception, all those kinds of things, Squire Muller. There's a fine line in there that is essential and critical and things of that nature. So, but anybody that is called away from their home to come work in this environment that we're in now would receive a 10% increase in their pay.
but what about the guys that are on the sanitation trucks right now?
They are receiving a 10% increase in their pay during the day.
Okay.
Because
The fire
everybody
department?
else is working from home.
The fire department crews?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's start down the line. Sherry's first. Do you have
I think somebody else has had their hand up for quite some time, so I'm gonna defer to whoever's had their hand up.
Okay, Scotty.
Just a quick question, looking over what we got in the binders from the city, it's got a sentence in there that says, as you notice, the city's policy is more generous to employees than the federal law requires. What does the federal law require?
Squire Tracy, I think that was an issue concerning sick leave. Federal law, I believe, required 2 weeks sick leave. I think the city voted to add another week to that, so they would get 3 weeks of sick leave.
That's right.
Per the federal policy. This other 10% thing, I don't think there's any federal guidance on there. I think it's something that came from the mayor's office and that the city chose to enact for the people working in this environment during this pandemic.
Y'all, can I clarify something?
Sure.
Sure.
Rick?
The Emergency Medical Leave Act required, I think it was 2 weeks or 80 hours to the family medical leave provisions as a result of the virus. The city had a special policy where they've given 3 weeks. The federal law floor is 2. That did not address additional pay for workers who would otherwise work at home or away from their workstation who were called in for actual workstation time. So there's 2 issues. The city took up 2 issues. The first was the 3 weeks as opposed to 2, and then as I understood, there was the discussion was for an extra funding for those who were called in to work from their workstation when they're otherwise working at home.
Thank you, Rick.
questions, Stanley?
Okay, ready to start down the line? So my first question is who is actually working from home? And the way I understood Tommy to say it, some employees could determine this on their own without supervisors directing them to work from home. So can somebody clarify that?
No? You talking about from the county or from the city?
No, I'm a county magistrate. Sorry, I'm not dealing with the city. I thought we were talking about from county employees. Who is actually working from home?
Okay, in this office, we are staffing, the front desk, and, other than that, you have the option of coming to work if you want or need to, or you can work from home, and we have given them a laptop to work from home. So some people, like Lee Griffin, comes in quite often. Susan comes in quite often, but then goes home and goes to work. Brittany works from home. Ann works from home. Betty Jo comes in quite often, and so does Vicky with payroll. Kim Cox works from home. John Mitchell, all department heads send their employees home or call them in when and if they are needed. So that's, in a nutshell, the easiest way to say what's happening.
So again, I'm just trying to pick up on the question that Squire Muller and I think Squire Moore, I believe, asked. If we have a storm tomorrow night, and I think somebody mentioned the road department staff would come out, they would typically handle that if a storm happens anyway. It has no direct bearing or impact due to COVID-19. So, because they are doing normal work in response to what they would normally be asked to do, would it apply? Would this 10% apply? I'm just trying to get clarification.
Well, it's okay, let's clarify.
Does it have to be a direct impact with the emergency that's been declared because of COVID-19 and directly impacted the COVID-19?
Okay, let's answer that first. In a normal situation, and they had worked 8 hours of a day and they came in after their time, they would get time and a half for it, okay? So, in this case, if they didn't work that day, it still counts as a day's work. And they would come in, under what the city is proposing, they would get time and a half, I guess, right, Tommy, plus 10%? Or is that what the city is doing? I don't know on that one.
I assume overtime is overtime plus 10% of their base salary.
+10%, okay, so that one. So it's really, we are under the auspices of, they are still at work if they're at home. So they're getting paid, okay? So I don't know whether that made it clear or muddied the water more, but that's the way it works now.
Can I say something? This is Betty Jo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I want to try to clarify something myself, maybe a shorter version. The city basically is implementing, you should have a copy of the document. This will impact both essential and non-essential, as outlined below. So their policy that they implemented, basically, employees can work from home and are instructed to do so by their supervisor and expected to work from home and accessible by phone. If they are called into work in the office, those employees would get 10%. Except for the department heads.
Is that right, John?
So that's how they classify their employees. There's two terms they're using, essential and non-essential. Essential, of course, would be the fire, the sheriff. And non-essential would be administrative staff that is instructed to come in only to do a task. If they can do it at home, they need to do it at home.
Okay.
That helps any?
So, no, so, to use the road department, I mean, they're supposed to maintain the county roads, so I'm not sure how they can do that at home. I'm just trying to completely understand the ramifications of what this does for employees who don't have desk jobs.
Okay, John Mitchell, are you on the line?
Understand what you're saying, Sherry. So basically, to answer your question to that, right now, they cannot work from home, but if they are called out during this process, then they would get the 10% pay.
No, that's
the
if we
city
adopted
policy,
this.
not ours, you all have it.
So, hey, Betty Jo, can I ask you a question? How does that work if they're, I'm assuming they're laid off if they're not working? How does that work to call them in if they're laid off?
They are not laid off,
They're
Michael.
not, they're not, I'm sorry, they're not laid off. They're still being paid.
So anyone who works in the field who doesn't have work they can do at home, that's been sent home is still getting paid, is that right?
That is
That's
correct.
we did not lay them off to draw unemployment because we are 100% paid employer.
Now what,
So they are not laid off. They're still getting paid on the county payroll.
Okay, I don't understand that. I'm
That's
a little
the
confused.
state recommendation.
That comes back to the executive order of the governor to send, I won't say non-essential personnel, but to send all non-essential personnel home to create social distancing in the workplace and help stop the spread of this virus. I think that's where that's gonna go back to, Squire Muller, to be honest with you, following the governor's edict.
I understand talking to business owners in the private industry that the way it was read, that is if they were asked to do that, then they were instructed to sign them up for, the unemployment because they've been asked to leave temporarily.
No.
I don't know that. I don't know that.
Business maybe, but not government.
Yeah, this is,
he said private sector.
Oh, the private sector.
What the plant board was doing, now I don't know what they're doing as of today, but what they were doing is working half crews one day and another half the next.
Yeah.
So
Scotty
that
has a
they-
question.
so the whole crew didn't go down.
right.
Scotty.
And that to me makes sense. Because the thing is the staff at, for example, Lakeview Park, I'm not sure how they're working. And again, about the road department, because those staff by and large do not have desk jobs, administrative duties, like Betty Jo mentioned when she first started talking about this.
That is correct. The staff at Lakeview are called in when it's time to mow and do the things that they need to do to keep the upkeep of the park going. John Mitchell staff is called in when there are, actually he said, John, are you on the line? John, I thought was on the line. John, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, answer that question and what you do with your staff instead of me answering it for you.
Well, like I said, everything's based on an emergency call, and I determine who goes and does what. But I'll back up and say that I think the weather played a whole lot of our decision making when we made the decision, because it was raining every day, and it's hard to do anything in the rain. So that played a role when we pulled the trigger on that decision.
Can you all hear John?
Yes, I can.
JW?
Yes, we can hear John, but the thing is it rains a lot of time here, so they're typically doing things like working on vehicles, servicing machines. They are doing productive things toward keeping equipment ready and viable, and probably looking at jobs and other things. I'm assuming, John.
Yes, but that puts all my people in one small building.
Yeah.
Right, that would be
Yeah.
unsafe.
Yeah.
No, but what I was meaning is to get back to the plant board example of where they're running, like they may run a crew or two crews on Monday. Tuesday, they move to two different crews. Wednesday, they move to two different crews. Just so there is a semblance of work still actually happening for people who are not administrative staff. That's the only point I'm trying to make.
I think all of them are still being paid.
Fine with me, I can put a schedule together.
Well, that's not the point here, because they're still gonna be, if you're not working, you're still gonna get paid. So, well, I told you, John, that I'm relying on you when we need to get out and do something, and can get out and do something, that you'll call a crew in. You know, won't call everybody in, but you'll call a crew in to get that done. I guess really, we're getting off task, and I understand, and I thought this would take a long time, but we really need to kind of focus in on whether you want to do this from the county standpoint, and if so, how do you want to do it?
Is Chief on there?
Is Chief Hutchison on there?
Scotty has a question.
Chief Hutchison, are you on there?
I am.
Would you speak to what your thoughts are, please, sir?
Scotty, you want me to go? Scotty has his hand up.
I'm sorry, I didn't see. I'm sorry.
I called line a minute ago, but then Sherry spoke in.
All right. Who? We'll say.
Scotty, go ahead.
You all have clearly thought this through. My question would be this: for all the ones that are currently working from home, if they come into the office on their own, does this apply to them?
No.
Okay. My next question would be, how would this affect your police, your fire, your clerk, the county attorney's staff? How would this affect the coroner's staff? How would this affect all of them, or would this affect them?
We actually, so Tim, that's the question, and I guess Rick Sparks will have to answer that too. We're only responsible for our staff.
What's under your staff?
What's under us. And we're not responsible for Rick's staff, Jeff Hancock's staff, the sheriff's staff, as well as the coroner's staff. And the jail.
I can tell you, this is Rick, I can tell you what we're doing right now in terms of maintaining some office presence because of the way the courthouse is closed. We have some days where it's only Attorney General state staff that is on court dates, but there are some days that support staff and I don't want to say support staff, administrators, the real professionals who actually do the jobs, show up half day or so to assist with case preparation for a live hearing. Like tomorrow, we've got some in front of family court. This week, we've had some preliminary hearings. You've heard from the jailer earlier about things we're doing to try to get people processed through so that cases don't stagnate to the extent that the rules allow us to do it. But we do have a couple days a week an office presence where people come in and they do work that they just simply can't do at home. So I would anticipate that some during the week we would have staff a couple days a week coming in to do half days and take the work home with them after that. And that's just my case, y'all. I don't know about other officers.
Scotty.
So my next question would be, let's take the fire department, for example. Jimmy's scheduled to work on Tuesday. He goes to work. Does he qualify for this?
Scotty, this is Betty Jo. Per the city policy, he would, because he's a essential employee. Essential employees is defined as sheriff, jail, and fire. Those are essential, non-sensitive positions. So for the city policy, yes, all hours that they work would apply, the 10% would apply to all their hours worked, period. Because like I said, the city's policy is essential and non-essential. Does that answer your question?
It did. So I guess, again, it goes right back to my question earlier. Has there been any conversations, again, I see that this has really been thought through. Has there been any conversations with the other countywide elected officials that don't fall under our admin code into regards to this?
Yes.
And if so, where are they at? Because when you're looking at them, it would affect their budget, which in return I think means they would be back to us asking for money.
And Chris Quires' first question in, Chris, our Sheriff Quire is here. I don't see him, but he'll be in here in a second. But his first response is this going to affect my annual order? And it definitely would affect his annual order. So, yes, in his case, he was very concerned about it. I think Susan Lawrenson is on the line. Susan, are you on the line? What you want to answer, Squire Tracy?
Judge, one quick question, Judge.
Yes,
Obviously, you were in the room with Sheriff Quire. What's your thoughts? I mean, what did you say to him when he brought up the concern of his budget?
Well, that was actually Susan's response to that was yes, it would affect his annual. It would affect his annual order, and he was concerned that he didn't want to go over it. And then it was just brought up. Well, possibly you could amend it if that were the case. If it did go over it, you could amend the budget to add more money to it, if that were the case.
So I've asked the questions a couple of times about how this is going to impact our reserves. Does anybody have a handle on that?
Well, it's pretty easy. You just say if you have, this is going to be additional money, it's going to be a 10%. You just, on the number of people, the number of hours that are worked, and you take that amount, and yes, it is going to affect, it is going to call for the most part, unless somebody's budget is way under what was budgeted for salaries, it is going to affect that, without question.
This is Betty Jones here. The reason we wanted to discuss this with you all, like the judge said, the city implemented this, and then we had county employees asking us, so the judge thought it was his obligation to take it in front of the court to see y'all's thoughts on it.
Yeah, so this is going to have an effect on the budget. Scotty, I've got Sheriff Quire here. You want to ask a question of Sheriff Quire, or Sherry? Either one of you, you're kind of alluding to what they were thinking.
No, you answered my question.
Okay. The question was, what was your response? And I recall your response being, is this going to affect my annual order?
Yes. I don't, we talked about it before, but I don't think we could give out $2 an hour raises in December 31st. Our money wouldn't match, so I know it's a little different for the jail and the fire department with their budgets coming up in July, but ours is pretty much sealed, so I would be afraid that we'd overspend if we tried to do that.
Yeah. And the sheriff mentioned the $2 an hour. Susan, and when we were all in the same room talking about it, discussing it, Susan brought up an idea that I think everybody in the room felt better about it. It'd be easier if we went this route, and that would be a straight dollar, actually $2 increase as opposed to a percentage increase. $2 an hour increase for everyone. And one of the reasons the city was doing this, from what I understand, and Tommy can attest to it, is that like the garbage workers were still having to go out there and work, and they were going to get a 10% raise, and then some of the people in the fire department are going to get a 10% raise, and it means a whole lot more to somebody that has a bigger salary than somebody that has a lower salary. So we all kind of thought, if this were the route we go, it would be easier and more beneficial to the employees from low end to high end if we did $1 an hour raise. Right, Chris? And that, you recall that being said?
I really never agreed to it. You know, I have 4 people laid off right now, so I just don't feel comfortable giving other people raises. I know they're at work, but what about the 4 office staff that's not getting any money? They're filing for unemployment, you know, and nobody knows if a part-time person's even gonna get it or not.
Yeah.
So I just have a hard time, you know, we're hazardous duty, yes, we're exposed to it, I hate that, but I don't think I can pass out any more raises right now, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, Scotty.
So that brings up another question. We have some part-time employees. Does this impact them? I mean, have they been sent home? And we're paying them still?
We've not seen any part-time employees.
This is Betty Jo.
Yeah, okay. I think the government said didn't distinguish. Yeah, please, Betty.
I can answer that question, Sherry.
Go ahead.
We had a couple of part-time employees that was already at the golf shop. So yes, those employees has been laid off and, has submitted unemployment claims. Due to the Emergency Leave Act, there's provisions in there now for part-time employees to receive unemployment.
Yeah, but is that the only place we have part-time employees?
No, we have 2 here in the office, and they are working. We are maintaining the phones in our office 8 to 4:30 every day, except for lunchtime.
Correct.
Okay, Michael. Oh, do you want to go?
I'm last, so let's go on, Tim.
I'm just cut to the chase. I personally am not for this. I appreciate everything our employees do, but I think, especially as a business owner, me, my wife, are trying to figure out how to make it through this crisis without going belly up. And I think I need to look at the government the same way. There's going to be major shortfalls with people working from home from other counties. Our taxes are going to be lower. I mean, I just think we're going to be short all the way around. So that's where I'm at.
That's a great point. Squire Moore?
I was gonna say the same thing. I'm inclined to say no, unless you had someone that you had to call from a desk job to go help the sheriff's office or the fire department in a civil unrest situation, I would have to say no also.
That may be a different story.
That'd be a completely different issue right there.
Yeah, I agree.
I very much appreciate our people, but we were on good track as far as our fiscal revenues, and that's going to be all to pieces now.
Scott.
Who?
Judge, can I say something? This is Jake.
Yeah, please.
Just so it's clear, I have 52 full-time employees, and we are full staff. I only have 5 hazardous duty left. I just wanted to point that out.
Okay.
And they are coming to work. They have to.
Okay. Good deal. Yes, sir.
All right. JW, did you have a question?
Go ahead. Did I have a question? I just want to make a statement that a lot of my people are not hazardous duty and they are coming to work.
So you need to say the name. No, I don't even know you're talking.
JW.
JW, do you have a question?
I just couldn't hear you for a long time.
That's on your speaker.
No?
Could you hear
You
other
just
people?
cut out.
Oh, that may just be the transmission.
Okay, does he have a question?
Do you have a question?
No.
Sherry?
Did JW hear all of that conversation? I think that's.
No.
I'm trying to make sure Keith heard everything that the rest of us heard.
Yeah.
Do you have a question, JW? Do you have a thought?
He didn't hear what
I
was
just didn't hear about the last 2 minutes of the conversation.
Well, JW, Michael, Squire Mueller said that he would be inclined against this, and so did I.
Yeah, I've got some mixed feelings on it. I know that our occupational tax is gonna be impacted heavily, as well as a lot of other types of taxes. I guess our property tax, our revenue coming in, during this time is gonna be greatly affected. It's gonna be hard for us to, to give more money out when we're bringing less in.
That's for sure.
But in the case of a fire or something directly related to this crisis, I can't say that I'm completely for it either.
Scotty?
A couple of things. Judge, being, you declared the local emergency.
I'm sorry, Scotty, we can't hear you. You're mumbled. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, we can't hear you, Scotty.
Even his feed is faded out.
You got a bad connection, Scotty.
Keep talking, Scotty, so we can try to get you back.
Declaration of the state emergency. Does this require the
Does anybody else want to say something?
He's still trying to talk.
Is he trying to talk?
He
Okay.
is still trying to talk, but his feed, it's.
Hello?
Yes.
Keep, quickly as possible, make your point, Scotty, because you are fading in and out rapidly.
We didn't hear anything you said.
Too many people using the internet.
Just a quick question, being under the local state of emergency, does this require the magistrate's approval or can it be done administratively?
There's a question about that. And Rick, I don't know, the city took it to the city commission, didn't they, Tommy? Or I don't know how they did it.
Keith did it.
Keith did it?
No,
Okay.
The mayor did it.
The mayor
The mayor
did it?
did it,
Okay.
It's under your purview and the mayor's purview.
I could do it, so I could do it? Right,
That's my understanding, sir.
okay.
Or 39A.
Okay, okay. In my opinion, I think it's an issue that we all need to discuss.
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to be transparent here and put everything out on the line.
And then I got a question for Rick. Rick, I guess my question is, whose statute are we going by? As far as the declaration of emergency?
There are two. There's the governor's general declaration of emergency, which engaged the emergency operation systems, some of the health department rules, things like that. And then there's a local one too that allows local executive some flexibility for purchasing, getting around, for example, bid requirements, et cetera, to acquire emergency products, those kind of things. So it depends on what you're really talking about, what you're doing under. It depends on who's exercising power. Right now, you're experiencing an issue that whether or not the local executive would have the power to do that. And my concern would be, it's one thing to say we need to go out and hire X number of new employees. And again, y'all, just let me remind you that this is truly, winging a prayer and seat your pants kind of stuff. There's no real precedent to anything at all like this. So I think everyone the emergency per se. You're not talking about going out and trying to buy generators in a night storm. The discussion that I think that the judges brought up, whether or not for those employees who are coming in, not and trying to come to some distinction based on the way the city did it, whether or not there should be a salary differential when they come into the office or come into their workstation as opposed to somewhere else. And I think it's more than prudent for the fiscal court to weigh in on that as opposed to just a signature, because this is not related to the emergency. Okay, that's fair, but it's not a direct nexus to the emergency like it would be if you had to buy a truck in a snowstorm. So to answer your first question, you're talking about the county's local declaration of emergency, which does give the executive a lot of power to address the emergency in things like work at home, stuff like that. This is a little different. It's a little more nuanced, and I think this is something the court should be weighing up, one way or the other.
Okay.
I would feel very uncomfortable if the judge just executed an agreed order doing this with a stroke of a pen.
And I'm not, so we've
Right,
passed.
and I didn't mean to say you were, Judge. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. That was not my intention of that statement at all.
Right. So, Scotty, what are your thoughts about either doing this or not doing it? And if you say do it, what were your thoughts about how to get it done?
I mean, we've been rambling back and forth. Obviously, I don't see a plan. I don't see who it's going to affect, who it's not going to affect. Again, I mean, if you've got people that are working from home, say you got payroll, she's got to go in and cut checks. Is she going to qualify? She had to go in. I just like to see a plan. It's just like, it's one of those things that says, well, the city did it, so we better look at it. That's where I'm at on it.
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of true that the city's got a plan right there. If you want a plan, all we have to do is take 10% out and put $2 in or a dollar amount in, and it can go that same route.
I'd like to have seen Judge, what I'm saying is I'd like to have seen the plan presented to us instead of the city's plan.
I don't have a plan. I'm not gonna make a plan unless you're willing, if you want a plan, to vote on. If already there's 2 votes against the whole idea, so I'm not gonna sit down and try to work out a plan unless you say, okay, we're interested in doing this, but come up with a plan first. Is that right?
I'll go back to what I said earlier. It's easier to look at a plan than to vote on something and say I'm for it when there's no plan in front of me. I'd much rather see a plan. Bring the plan. Like I said, I don't think it's been clearly thought through. I think it's just thrown in the agenda and let's discuss it.
Well, no, I object to you saying that this hadn't been thought through. Come on, Scotty, we have spent hours and had meetings after meetings with everybody to try to talk about this. We have spent time on this.
What I'm saying, Judge, is why wasn't there an hourly plan? If that's what you wanted to go with, why wasn't the hourly plan?
Well, that's what we're discussing here.
Not the percentage. That's all I'm saying. It's like that. I'm just saying, the agenda didn't say everything out there. I'm saying that's what should have been put in the.
Well, that's what we're discussing here, Squire.
What's what we're trying to discuss here.
Trying to, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I close out my part?
Yes.
I support employees just like everybody, and my job here is not a voting member, of course, or to give you all advice, but I'm concerned about the sheriff's office budget and whether we would overspend or not. And, we're laying off people that we can't use, so if I had a vote, it would be no. And my thing is our revenues and commissions are dropping rapidly. No car inspections, who knows how many taxes we're gonna be able to collect, and just the daily fees we get. So I have to take care of us and my little piece of the pie. Unless the court was gonna fund that $2 or whatever, I would have to say no on my part. The rest of you, I know the jail's not hazardous, and the fire department, their money's a little different, but for the clerk and the sheriff, we have fees, that's how we survive. So that's just my 2 cents.
That's actually more than about 25 cents worth. That's good. Good.
But if nobody has any questions, I'll go back out in the lobby.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are there any other magistrates that want to chime in and say yes, they're for something? You go with Scotty's route, you want a plan, or you just against it? And I just need to hear what you all want to talk about.
Well, I mean, to the extent that it's on the agenda, of course.
Yes.
So, you know, I guess my comments are gonna have to come with, I am worried about, our sources of revenue just to cover what we're gonna have to cover as we know it right now. We know our occupational tax is gonna be hit, sales tax is gonna be hit. Not many people are driving right now, gas tax is gonna be hit. I mean, you know, I don't see where we're gonna be bringing in as much revenue as we had anticipated before this. And we're putting something in front of the rest of the budget and services that we're required to provide. So I'm just bringing that up based on the unknown quantity of money that we're not gonna take in.
So are you for or against?
Make a call.
I don't know if she heard you, Judge.
Sherry, are you for or against?
Are you here?
Yeah. Tamara, I need your help. I can't see.
I can't do anything to help. They can't hear her either.
Sherry, can you not hear us, Sherry?
Okay.
There's nothing I can do.
All right, let's do this. Let's just take it off the agenda at this point in time, and if there's something, if
Yeah,
there's another route to go, I'll do it. Rick, can I do that?
It's not on the agenda. It's just,
Yeah.
it was just there for discussion.
Take it off for, take it
It
off?
was just for discussion, so.
Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda is approval, authorization of approval of minutes from our special meeting of March 16th, 2020. Any discussion on that?
Can you hear anything I'm saying?
We heard that.
Michael has his mic.
All right.
So I'm-
It's go to meeting. My com is that Marty was listed as voting
Yes,
to adjourn,
and,
and she was not at the meeting.
yes, and I emailed you the correction, so you should have those corrections in front of you with your email.
What's that got to do with it?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. That's not,
But that doesn't make any difference.
no,
Okay.
I corrected it. It's
Okay.
been taken care of.
Okay, Squires, we are taking it off the agenda, and if there's movement in a way to allow it, we'll put it back on the agenda. So for right now, we're moving on to the next item of the agenda, that's item 2, and that's authorization of approval of minutes from our special meeting of March 16th. Is there any discussion on that?
And that's what she was discussing.
That's what Sherry was mentioning.
Yeah, so we're good on that.
It's already been corrected.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
The next item is authorization to approval of our 2021 budget for the Capital Community Economic Industrial Development Authority. And by statute, they have to present that to us 3 months ahead. And Terry, is Zach on the line? Are you gonna present?
Yeah, I haven't heard from Zachary, so it's me.
Okay. So Terry's here. Do you mind stepping up, Terry? There's a little piece of tape there on the
Well,
floor. Keep coming.
So.
Yeah, I think we had to move the piece of tape
We
so
did.
that Lambert could be
Okay,
here.
okay.
I didn't want to be.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I mean, you have it in front of you. I'll be happy to answer questions, but it's pretty self-explanatory. It's almost identical to last year's.
Okay. Looks like there's, $900 more.
Yeah, that came, we only showed in our budget last year that we would make about $200 on interest income because previously we had our money not earning as much interest as it should have, and we moved that money around a little bit to draw higher interest. So we drew about $1,000 worth of interest last year, so we just adjusted the budget so that it would show something similar this year.
Okay, all right. Are there any questions for Terry by the magistrates
Okay,
about the economic development? Okay.
JW? Go ahead, JW.
Can you hear me?
Yes? Yes.
All right, I was looking at, utilities. They went up 65%. Do you have more facilities or,
Well,
just for understanding?
yeah, well, here's what partially happened. We caught this halfway through the year, but we had already gotten our budgets approved, so we didn't change it. So part of that, we included for some reason, when we switched admins, our new admin put the utilities in the telephone in utilities. So rather than the phone being in the phone went into utilities. So we'll be a little short on our phone bill this year. Not short. We'll be under budget on our phone bill this year because part of that expense went into the utilities column. And we didn't switch it back after Margaret was out on maternity leave, and so Erin filled in for her. Erin didn't know that the telephone wasn't a utility. And so we had already gotten those previous budgets approved. So we didn't change it after we caught it in the previous budgets because we didn't want to go back and reapprove 5 budgets. Did that make sense?
Yeah, so your telephone's going down this year?
No, our telephone will stay at 4,000, which is about where it normally is. But what we will spend in the current budget year that we're in will be less than 4,000 because we put that number in another column.
Okay.
Does that make sense? And then the other thing was that we tore the wall down in our upstairs. We have that upstairs rooms that we had tried to lease for a number of years and they just sat empty. So we were having board meetings in the back room in the downstairs office, and literally people were sitting in each other's laps. It would have been a nightmare during this time. So we instead tore the wall out upstairs and expanded that into one room and moved our conference room up there. And we didn't, in the previous budget, we didn't suffice for the fact that we would have to pay lighting and heating and stuff in that upstairs. So it went up a little more than we were anticipating. We keep the heat and air pretty much at a minimum up there when we're not in it, but it still costs money.
Go ahead, JW.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I also noticed your land maintenance went down. Did you?
We sold all our land.
what's going-
Yeah, we sold it all.
Good problem.
We sold it all, so we don't have to mow much anymore.
Hello?
Anybody else? Tamara, any other questions?
Nobody has their hand. Oh, Scotty.
Hi, Terry.
Hey, Scotty.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Quick question. Exempting current business expansions. How many new jobs have been created through the efforts of KCDC over the last year?
Over the last year, I would say, okay, so if you count the Goodwood jobs that we worked with, I don't know the answer. They're part-time jobs and we don't have a way of tracking those. Then we have Nishida, who is 35 to 40. And then we have Precision, which is another 35 to 40. So you're looking at 85, 100.
Any idea how many has been lost?
Well, lost as in the past 2 weeks, the Goodwood closes, lost in the past 2 weeks.
No,
Or
take
lost
March out.
overall. Say that again, Scotty?
I said you can take March out of that. I'm just big. I'm not talking about with the.
To my knowledge, none in the larger employers. As far as, local retail stuff, I don't know the answer to that. We only track the ones that are, that qualify under our incentive programs generally, so those are manufacturing, larger employers, and to my knowledge, none. Everybody was hiring until a couple of weeks ago. And at this point, they have not started laying off. Now, the automotive manufacturers, because the bigger, Ford, Toyota, GM are going to be closing, they will ultimately be laying off folks, but at this point, they're all still working.
Sherry?
I think so,
Do you know of any warn notices that have been received for employers in the area?
No, we have not. We've got no rapid response notices. We have no warn notices at this point. And I just talked to our manufacturers on, JW, what day did I tell you that was? Oh no, it was earlier this week, Monday? Earlier this week, we have one who thinks they may be starting to close lines next week, and one that will meet again on Friday to determine what they will do next week. But at this point, we've got nothing. Friday as in tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna make another statement, and it's similar to one that I made last year. Basically, it's the same. I'm just gonna express concern about being asked to approve this budget before we review the overall county budget. And we know our revenues are gonna be severely impacted, so if you're gonna ask me to do it tonight, I'm already gonna tell you, I'm gonna be a no on that tonight.
Well,
So my position, what is not any different than last year.
well, I understand last year because you didn't understand the budget process, and now you understand the budget process.
Oh, no, sir. No, sir. I do understand the budget process.
I do, yeah, you're right.
Years back.
You do understand it better than you did last year, and that was part of your reasons that you didn't understand the budget process last year. And so by statute, she has to present this budget to the court, or by our ordinance, by ordinance, it has to be presented to the court. We give them.
I don't think there's a statute on it. There's not a statute on this.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misspoke. I said, I changed it to ordinance. So, the ordinance says that they have to 3 months prior to July 1st. So we're trying to get this in. It is, they're not asking for any more money from us, and God help us if we don't think that economic development isn't going to be the key for us to get back on track with this mess that we're going through. God help us. But if that's the way you want to do it, and if you're doing that and then you're going to say you want them to shut down, is that what the next step is?
No, I didn't say that in the least. They're funded through June 30th.
Well,
So
what about
all I'm
after
saying
June
is
30th?
I'm not trying to debate the point. I'm just trying to, again, restate what I had stated before. I'm not in favor of, we have to receive the budget. We can receive the budget and act on it at any point. I just don't want to act on it.
I'm sorry, the ordinance says we have to approve the budget,
that
Sherry.
Would
you read the ordinance?
It's in your book.
Okay. Sherry, let me read the ordinance to you. It says, Section 4, item E, the authority shall prepare an operating budget for each fiscal year and shall submit each budget to the City Commission of the City of Frankfort and to the Franklin County Fiscal Court for approval not less than 3 months prior to the commencement of the fiscal year. And that's our ordinance. So,
How do we work to change the ordinance? Because we're putting a quasi-governmental entity's budget before the rest of our county. I'm just trying to understand why it's written that way. Since there's no statutory authority to make.
I'll yield to Mr. Sparks on that.
It's the creating ordinance going back when the TCDC, KPI, et cetera, was created. If you're gonna change that, I'm gonna take 2 readings and the body would have to approve. I'd note there, that's an interesting phrase, though, if everybody seems a little worked up today, which is, I'm glad I'm not on video, so you don't get to see that, my reaction. The requirement that KCDC has done, which is they submitted it for approval, you're leaving out the phrase that doesn't say that then the court shall approve. It says you shall submit it for approval. What you're doing
That's
is
correct.
correct.
Earlier.
But the rationale had to be approved. It had to be approved, or it had to be presented for approval was for planning purposes. We talked about that last year. And it causes some confusion because of how those things have to come in, because ultimately the county has to have their budget done by the end of June. So as these pieces come into play, they're sort of pieces of a puzzle. I was going to say a chessboard, but more like pieces of a puzzle. And that's why those deadlines for these agencies to present exist for planning purposes later. I don't know what the consequence is going to be if the court does approve it. It's never happened. I think that's a valid point. But KCDC's done everything that they have to do, in that they presented it timely for approval. When, if, et cetera, all choose to approve it, okay, that's up to you. But the closer you get to the log jam at the end of May and April, the more complicated the problems are going to be on it. So just keep that in mind.
Thank you, Rick.
You're holding on.
You've made my, no, that's okay. You've made my point. You reiterated it. Thank you, because they've met the letter of what the ordinance says. They have submitted it for us to review for approval.
They have satisfied their requirements. Now, if you do not approve it, then you're going to have not one, but two, but potentially a bunch of messes that you've got different agencies that can't operate because their budget hasn't been approved. So you really can't sit on it. But the ordinance
Not trying to, I'm only making the point that they are funded through June 30th, so they have operating capital through that time when we will take up all the budgets to review.
What is Rick?
Yeah, I just know how it's your all's manner, however you choose to do it. KCD sends it to your choice to approve or not. They've done what they can do.
Have you taken it from the city yet?
Yes, I have had it to the city by February, but I don't take it before then, I just give it to them.
Oh, okay, they don't require an approval? You
They
just
don't require me presenting it for them.
Just presenting it? Okay. So we probably ought to change that ordinance for just a presentation and not approval at some point in time.
Well, still,
Yeah.
it doesn't say you have to approve it right now. It says we have to approve it by June 30th. But it doesn't say we have to approve it right now.
It just says I
She
have
says
to have it to you.
she has to present it for approval. She's presented it for approval. We approve it now, or we approve it while we're doing our budget. Makes no difference.
Is that what you're saying, Rick?
That's my point. I think that's my point. So you said it, Rick said it, I said it, we're all saying the same thing. Terry has met the letter of what she needs to do.
Okay.
So we don't have to approve it tonight.
Kicking it down the can.
But we don't want to wait until the last minute because they have to,
We have to meet and then.
they may
approve our
have
budget.
to, if we're not gonna do it at this amount, then they have to amend it, so they have to have time to do that
Yeah,
too.
so remember last year, we didn't get approval of our budget till June 30th, I think, June 29th.
Yeah, so we didn't get to approve our budget until the end of July, which meant that our staff didn't get paid and our bills didn't get paid until we had an approved budget. So that's the thing that we run into, is that if we have approved this budget, but if the budget has to change, then that has to go back before my board again. And so if we don't get a new number from you all until the last day of the year, then we go into the new fiscal year unable to pay bills and staff.
Is there anybody else, is Sherry the only one that is bringing this up? Is everybody else ready to go with it, or are there, I guess, 4 votes that want to not approve the same amount as we gave KCDC last year and approve this budget?
Go on, but if it passes, just put it up for vote.
We just put it, yep, we're just gonna put it up for, we just put it up for a vote coming in just a moment at the end of this meeting. And what did it just say?
JW?
I'm kind of under the same belief as Lambert and Sherry. I'd like to see all the budgets. I don't like, we don't, you know, Jailer Bonner was just up there, and he mentioned COVID-19 13 times.
I don't see a scenario where we're gonna cut it.
Affect his revenue, and now he's.
Sorry, he can't hear you. All right, we can't, I'm sorry, we can't hear you, JW, you're not coming through at all, so. Rick, can we just, Rick, give us guidance on what to do with this. Do we bring it up for a vote? Do we just put it in the minutes that we heard the presentation?
Okay, did you ask? You're playing with fire again. You're going to wait till the end and have a bunch of bottlenecks for whatever reason because of unknowns and failures to act. And it's going to cause this court and it's going to cause these agencies a huge amount of trouble. If there's something substantive to the budget, which is just a guideline anyway, then address what is substantively wrong with the budget, but continuing to kick the can and passing it down to the end is going to, the lack of action is going to have serious ramifications in this agency, this court, and other courts. If there's a problem with it, fix the problem.
Yeah.
If there's no problem with it, let it ride.
Yeah, if you all are saying that, if you're saying that 115,000, we've been giving KCDC for how many years? I don't know, probably 10 or 15 years. If you're gonna cut that, then say it right now, let's just get to it, and so she can go on with her budget, and we'll put it in there. If you got the 4 votes to do it, go on and say it.
I'm for going on and passing it now. I don't wanna bottleneck it. I don't see the scenario where we're gonna be cutting it.
Yeah, I don't see how we can afford to cut it.
I think JW is gonna try to talk again.
All right, you pick it, I can't.
Go ahead, JW.
That was my 2 cents.
That was, JW said that? That was his 2 cents?
I think it was Rick.
No, Rick.
There's such a lag in the mouse movement and what's coming through. JW, go ahead. JW,
With
go
all
ahead.
due respect, I don't feel we're kicking the can down the road when we got one agency asking for about $500,000 more than they did last year. We've got to put the whole picture in perspective. I don't see a problem with $115,000, but if we have 4 other agencies that have huge asks, it might make a difference. So I think we have everything in front of us. I think jumping and just passing stuff because nothing's changed when everything else has changed is not a good tactic.
Now, Squire, let me clarify my comment. What I meant by that is that's exactly right. If there is a problem with it and it needs to be corrected, then these agencies need to know what is being corrected as part of the overall budgeting process, not just wait and find out. There's been a couple of discussions today on different matters where they've been kind of, I don't know, kitchen table kind of discussions where the court has pointed out that there was not clear guidance for a plaintiff. If you've got some issue, then I submit to you, tell KCDC what the issue is and tell them to fix it as those processes go on, because if you don't, you wait, it'll just be too late.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be totally unfair to any agency, including our own, that because we were late in deciding, or we decided at the last minute on a budget, that they didn't get paid for a month and they had to wait a month to get their paycheck. I don't think that's fair, and especially to an agency that helps us, that we have to rely on to bring businesses in to make our community grow, and especially if we're not willing to raise property tax. We have to increase our industry, and I think all of you know that. I think all of you were asked that question, you would say absolutely. So if there's something that you're not, if you're not comfortable at paying the $115, then just say it. Let's move on and try to work through this, because otherwise, if this is the way we're going to do every budget, everything that comes in, it is definitely going to be June 30th. And I hate to say that before we get started, before we can make a decision.
Okay, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody's arguing for coming to present. The problem is, we don't know what ramifications we're going to have. We could be taking a $2 or $3 million hit. And so then if that's the case, and we approve her budget at 115, you know, are we going to shortfall the jail or the police or the fire? So my question to Terry is, what would the last date be for us to approve it? June 1? I mean, what would be comfortable to make everybody on the court feel more comfortable as far as seeing some of these other budgets before we approve yours? And I don't think, like Rick was saying, I don't think there's anything wrong with your budget by any means, per se. But the unknown is what has everybody scared. So my question to you is, what is the comfortable date if we agree to have it settled by?
We would have our last meeting of this fiscal year on June the 16th, where we would have to, if there were changes to be made to the budget, we would have to make them and approve them then.
And so, Rick, I asked you the question, if they have to make changes to their budget, do they have to come back and re-present their budget to us for approval?
That's what happened last year. That's why we got so far behind.
So.
Yeah, because of the way the creating ordinance is, they would have to seek approval from the city and the county both. So this is a city and a county joint body.
So that backs it up to
the end of June.
May the 19th.
Okay, or otherwise it's the end of June and you're right now back into the same situation, aren't you? Where you would have to, would you be able to pay your employees?
Right.
If the last meeting in June, which is June 29th or something, Tamara, when is the last meeting?
I don't have the calendar with me, but it's 20th or 29th.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's what Michael's saying. He's asking me what my deadline would be to have to know. So it would be May the 19th. That would get us.
That was my question.
Yeah, that would give us time to get both approvals after that still.
So what date do you need us? May 1st? I mean, that's still, over a month away. We have 2 more meetings before that meeting. I guess I don't have the calendar in front of me. So my question would be, could we set a date that we need to, either approve it or not approve it by, and go ahead and put it on the agenda for that day, is what I'm getting at. Tamara, are you with me?
Yes. JW just held up, I was trying to read his note. I think he just said he can't hear.
We can see him, so there he is.
Can you hear anything, JW? See, he has a different little icon at the bottom. than they have. It's like his speaker's muted and not his microphone.
Yeah, are Scotty and Michael, are you guys on your phones?
Yes.
I bet JW's on his computer, which is why he's doing his sound through his computer, not his phone, which is why that's not working. Maybe if we ever
Tell me
hear
put on
JW
mute.
again.
Well, I don't know
Maybe
where he's gone now. So. Oh,
Hey
there he's
JW,
gone.
are you on your computer? You can't hear me. Can you hear me?
So, Tambra, May 9th, I believe, would be our last meeting before Terry's request. Would that
May
be fair to
15th.
put- I'm
It's
sorry?
May 15th, May 15th.
Okay, May 15th, thank you, Squire
And I
Sebastian.
think we're all saying the same thing. We want to do the right thing. We just want to consider the full picture of the pie, the entire pie, before you slice off a piece and give it in whole to somebody else, and you have to potentially cut someone else to the bone.
Are there 4 votes? Lambert and myself are 2, 4. There's 2 not.
Vote. If it fails, we'll put it on the next time.
Okay, we'll just put it on for vote, and if it fails, we'll, put it, I don't like that.
Well, I'd rather than because that would send a bad message. I don't think anyone has a problem with KCDC's budget. I would suggest that we put it on the May 19th agenda to approve or disapprove it then, if that's okay.
Well, y'all, KCDC has done their duty to present it. If there are any issues, I would ask the court, in all fairness, to tell KCDC what those issues are so they can address them prior to the next one. Because I'm sure that they didn't just pull it out of whole cloth when they presented it to the court. And your job is to consider either approval or not. And if you're not going to, tell what's wrong with it.
Well, Rick, I think what everybody's saying is we don't know what all the other budgets are gonna be.
Well, brother, I can tell you what, from what I'm sitting here reading the news while you all are talking, they ain't nobody knowing nothing right now. So unless you got that crystal ball, I don't think that's gonna change anything in 2 weeks.
I'm saying 2 weeks, I'm saying a month and a half.
Do what?
What would May 16th?
Can you handle that, Terry?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay, all right.
Yep, that
We'll put
sounds
on-
good.
We'll put on the May meeting, May 16th. All right, thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Terry.
Authorization to receive the proposed jail budget. We've already done that, so they had to present a draft budget. The next item is, Jake, are you on the line, Mr. Jailer?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Authorization to approve a memorandum of agreement between the Commonwealth of Kentucky Department of Facilities and Support Services and the Franklin County Regional Jail to establish an agreement for work experiences primarily in the area of construction for criminal offenders. Go ahead, Jake.
This is an MOA from the state. It's the same as last year's, but they have to have it in a certain date. So we put it on the agenda. This is the 3 employees that we send out with the work crews. I'm sorry, it's 1 employee goes out with the work crews, and they reimburse their salary.
Okay. Any?
So,
Sorry.
Jake, I have a question. I think the agreement calls for up to 6 inmates. Have we ever been able to put out up to 6? And is there an opportunity? You may see an opportunity. Can we expand that to more inmates? That's part 1. Part 2, it talks about the reimbursement back to the employee. Somewhere between 63 cents an hour, not to exceed 125. Is there any opportunity to increase that hourly rate? The reason I ask that, if we give part of that payment, the hourly rate, to the inmate, and then keep part of it for the administrative fees that the jail's gonna have to do, like paperwork and timekeeping, invoicing the state, staff attending that governmental services program supervisors training that they have to, preparing the lunch, getting their clothing together, buying that refillable water bottle that they have to take with them. So I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to recoup some of the administrative fees through the rate of pay. So there were two questions there.
I'm trying to remember the first one. The answer is yes, we're giving them 6 inmates, and yes, it is an option to give them more inmates if we have them. Like I spoke earlier, getting state inmates is very, very competitive, and they have to be divided out equally, and we have about 15 community services that we send to. But the answer is yes on both of those. If it's available, I will. On the renegotiation, I feel like it's already fair. They're giving the inmates more than the state is. And it's a highly sought after position by the inmates. They all love going to this group because they make a little bit more money.
Don't they get $3.95 per day as per diem?
Yes, sir. And part of that goes to reimbursement to us already for feeding them and the water bottles and stuff that Squire Sebastian said. So I feel like the memorandum's already pretty fair.
Sure, I'm just trying to make sure that we are recouping, if you feel like that's a fair wage or a fair amount for us to recoup some of those administrative costs to do with the paperwork and to send people to training and the other things. Because you did answer the first question, yes, which is great. I'm just trying to see if this covers some of those costs, because we talked about it extensively earlier before court started today.
Yeah, we do recoup some Squire, so we're already doing pretty good with this MOA.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Nobody's holding up anything.
Okay, let's move on.
Judge, I just want to step back for a second on the authorization to receive the jail's budget. We're just receiving it, right?
Yes.
We're not okaying it.
That's right, we're not okaying it, it's a draft.
The proposed
Yes.
budget.
Yeah, good question. Thought I made that clear, but I.
You did, but I just making sure.
Yeah, okay. The next item is authorization to approve a resolution. Authorize the filing of an application for the 2020 Kentucky Pride Fund composting grants with the Kentucky Energy, Environment, and Division of Waste Management. Brittany, you've got 3 items. If you'll just go through one item at a time, tell us when you're on the second and the third. So go ahead, Brittany.
Sure. This is an annual, or all 3 of these are annual grant applications that run on fiscal year. They're all grants that whatever we are awarded, we are given up front. And then spend the funds. We request certain things for each grant, mainly funding for advertising and education purposes, and if we need any pieces of equipment, and that goes primarily for the composting and the recycle grants. We have received funding for each of these grants over the last couple of years. So there is a 25% match required for all 3 of these grants, and that can be achieved with personnel time. Is there any questions about any of them?
Sure.
What's the maximum amount we can apply for, Brittany?
Did you do all 3?
Well, at least 2 of these grants, the composting and the recycle grant, come out of the same pot of money. So if you request more on a specific grant, you have the chance of not being approved for the entire amount you're asking for on another grant. We can request whatever we want to put in for. It's just a matter of how much the state is willing to disperse to each county that is requesting items and what they are requesting funding for.
Okay, I'm only asking it because in each of these 3 applications that we've reviewed, or the 3 grants that are available, it didn't have amounts, so I didn't know if they were sliding scale, if it was based on population, any of that kind of thing. That's all.
Yeah.
The only grant that I'm aware of that's based on by calendar year. We took care of that one back in November. But these are all just kind of, for lack of better terms, I guess, up for grabs. The state has the Kentucky Pride Fund, and there's a certain amount of money in there, and it's divided amongst all counties and even cities that apply for this grant or these grants, and based on projects and past successes and how things are currently going in your programs, I think they base their approvals off of that.
So, Brittany, are you saying that we don't put money in, we put the projects in, and then they value the projects, and then they?
No. I have to submit a value for each item that I request. So, let's say, for example, for this compost grant, I am requesting funds to purchase a generator specifically to be used at the compost pad. Currently, Billy Joe utilizes the generator from the road department, and he's had some maintenance issues with it, so sometimes it doesn't operate the screener efficiently, which has kind of created a little bit of a backlog of material that could be screened. But so we're requesting funds for a generator, and that's valued, I think, just under $3,000. And then I'm working with the plant board and the state journal to figure out advertising costs. Ashley and I have talked a lot about putting together a more regular backyard composting workshop, and we're hoping to be able to provide quarterly composting classes, and there's a request for funding that I put in there to actually purchase some bins and tumblers to give out to residents, as well as a classroom composting program where I would go into schools, and I'm requesting funding for books and these smaller see-through containers that have different compartments where kids can watch items decompose. And then funding for bags for the finished compost material, which we're hoping to give back to residents. So those are all different things that I've actually put a value to based on actually looking up quotes and looking up items and talking to advertising agencies. So that's how I've come up with the amounts that I'm requesting, and that's how I do all of the grants.
So Brittany, just an FYI, we appreciate you going after the grants, but when you present the grants to us, if you would have an additional sheet that says, these monies are, this is what we're applying for, these are the amounts, because none of these, this doesn't have that in there, and so it would be helpful to us. You wouldn't, so we don't want you to have to go through everything line by line, but it would be helpful just to know what's being applied for, okay?
Okay, yep, I can definitely do that.
Thank you. Now, do you need to go to number 7, the hazardous waste?
The household hazardous waste is just basically, it's also a 25% match required, but that's taken care of with my time and city personnel time who also work the event. The majority of that funding is requested for the fees associated with the vendor that actually deals with handling and transporting the hazardous waste.
So Brittany, is hazardous waste has been canceled for April, is that correct?
It's been postponed. I wouldn't say canceled yet because we don't know exactly what's going on. And I've been in talks with the vendor. My current grant cycle ends June 30th, and if these orders are lifted and we're allowed to actually have events, he does currently have dates available before June 30th.
Okay.
So it's all up in the air, but I would say it's postponed for now, yes.
Yeah, well,
So
Well,
is spring clean, all of those events are postponed.
okay. Now go to the next item, the recycling grant.
Yep, same, it's pretty much the same deal, equipment and advertising costs, and then, for, another classroom education program.
Okay,
And, I also put in a request, to fund the Recollect app again. We're hoping to get that on another agenda here shortly. I'm going back and forth with the state on trying to figure out, some prior spending so that all of the funds are, accounted for in the proper grants. Just because came in the middle of the grant cycle and was trying to figure it all out.
okay. Are there questions for Brittany on these three grant proposals?
Michael has a question.
Brittany, question, and sorry if I missed this. Have we applied for any of these grants before? And if so, how much were we awarded per grant?
Yeah, we've applied for the compost grant since 2016. In the past, we received quite a bit of funding on the compost grant, that actually like hundreds of thousands of dollars, which helped buy equipment to get the pad up and running.
Front end loader.
Last year, since there were quite a few other counties that applied for that funding and we were already up and running, we have requested funds for equipment. The equipment we've been talking about with the road department with John about picking up the tree limbs, making it a one-person job. We requested funding for that piece of equipment, but we're not granted it. So last year, we received $6,500 for the compost grant, and that was utilized for purchasing bags and education so far. We'll have to do our match for that with personnel time. Household hazardous waste we've received for, I want to say 7 or 8 years. We've been able to put on programs in the last 3 years, I think. We've been able to host 2 events per year when it's typically just 1 because we have excess funding. And that's where a supplemental application comes in play, and we request from the state that we can utilize that remaining funding to hold a second event. And they've all seen pretty much the same participation every time. So last year we received $21,500 for that. And then the recycle grant we've received for the last 3 years. And the last grant cycle, or the one that we're currently in, we requested $10,000 primarily for education and advertising purposes.
Okay, any other questions?
No, thank you, Brittany.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks, Brittany. Have a good evening. Sorry you've been on so long.
Oh, you guys are fun.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, Miss Ann, are you on the line in North
Yes, I
Carolina?
am.
Okay. I'm glad you hadn't been holding your breath anyway. I'm glad you're here, dear. Okay, let's talk about the Homeland Security grant.
Yes, this is an application to apply for a Homeland Security grant. This year, one of the goals of Kentucky Homeland Security is the increased security at facilities. So we have a 2-part grant application this year. One is for perimeter fencing and security gates for the regional jail. And the other one is for a system of cameras to be installed at Lakeview Park at strategic locations. So we put both of those under increased security of some county facilities. We're going to apply for both of those under the same grant.
Okie doke.
There is no match for Homeland Security grant. There may be some amount according to Jailer Bonta and also Andrew and Charlie that we may end up using a little bit of force account assistance in getting those installations taken care of, but there is no cash match.
Yeah. Well, I think Jailer Bonner, are you still on the line? No. Okay, yeah. All right. Well, anyway, Jailer Bonner, I think this is a great idea, putting that fence around that area up there. I believe it will help security quite a bit. Any questions for Ann?
Because she didn't have a narrative either with her resolution. So is that something that they want to also have Ann start doing a narrative outlining what the application's for and the costs on those?
I generally do include a description with the resolutions for grant applications. For this one, we were still waiting. There was an additional project that we were considering putting under this grant, but I had talked with the other elected official and he had decided to wait on that. So I didn't want to go ahead and put a description in this resolution. I left it pretty general. The cost for the perimeter fencing for the jail is, the estimate we have is about $36,141. And the estimate for the cameras for Lakeview Park with all the equipment that's associated with those and with some installation by McAllen is about $18,582. So we're looking at an approximate project value of about $55,000 that we'll be applying for.
That's great.
Okay, thank you. I just
Thanks,
wanted to
Ann.
make sure that we were doing them all the same for consistency.
And normally, I do recall that Ann normally does that. Okay. All right, any other questions for Homeland Security grant? Okay, thanks, Ann. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
I think Michael may.
Uh-huh.
Did you have a question, Michael?
No, I was just thanking Ann for her work.
Yeah. Okay, next item is Robert Hewitt. Are you on the line, sir? Robert Hewitt.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay, Robert. Okay, you've got 2 items you want to talk. So let's start with the storm sewer system project.
Thank you, Judge. Good evening, Court. This is an assignment of a contract for professional engineering services relating to the co-permittee status of the city and the county for the MS4 program. Both the city and the county have worked with Laura Kurtz, who is the project manager, for many years. She has worked with several different firms, and we have enjoyed her services. She's very knowledgeable, and we would like to continue working with that staff person. The current contract we have is with Tetra Tech, and they are agreeing to transfer their contractual services over to Stantec, which Laura Kurtz is currently employed by. The city of Frankfort has already approved this assignment of the contract, and I recommend approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions? Any questions?
I just have maybe a couple. Robert, on the letter, page 1, there's a phrase in there that says, the existing budget in the original scope has been revised to reallocate funds to items discussed January 21st of 2020, meaning extending the scope and deliverable dates of this contract to April 15th, 2021. So does that mean the 15,000 applies because it was original 30? I saw it struck through, someone had penciled in 15, but then the document we have says 10. I'm just trying to understand the distinction between all that.
Which page 1 are you referring to? That of the Stantec document?
The letter, it's the letter.
Scroll down to I'm sorry, which letter are you referring to? I apologize. I'm looking at your packet at the moment.
It's a letter, it's on Stantec. That's the only letter I see in here. It's the Stantec letter. We are talking about that, right?
Yeah.
And so if you'll look in the third paragraph of that letter, the one that begins with, "We understand that several tasks under the existing," et cetera, if you'll look to the last sentence, and then there's a sentence fragment right after that, if you'll look to those last two pieces there, I'm just trying to understand if that's the 15 or the 10. I'm just trying to understand what that means. Because there's two things that were mentioned in the document.
I'm trying to locate the page you're referring to,
Third page
because
of
I'm
the
not seeing
packet.
a handwritten amendment. So, as I look at your packet, I see my agenda abstract. I see the assignment of contract. And then I see the document on the Stantec letterhead dated February 20th, 2020.
Right, and so if you look down to the third paragraph of that.
Okay.
If you'll look to the third paragraph of that,
Okay.
it's the final sentence and the sentence fragment at the end. It's those two pieces. I'm just trying to ascertain what that, does that refer to the 10,000 or does that refer to the 15,000? Because if you look back in the document, there is a strike through on a contract that says, each entity, and that would be page 3 of the original ordinance that was signed by the judge in Shirley, that was right through there, 30, and it was mentioned 15. So I'm just trying to figure out if this is the 15 or the 10, if we're adding 10 more on top of the 15. I'm just trying to figure that part out.
Is one of them the full cost and the other is the shared cost?
Well, I believe what Squire Sebastian's referring to is Section 5 compensation of the original agreement. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that was, that was an original agreement for the shared cost. So Judge Wells is correct. But now remember, this is I don't mean the shared cost. This is the local government cost, because under this engineering agreement, we are considered as a single entity, okay? So the county pays 25% of this agreement, the city pays 75% of this agreement. So if we refer back to Stantec page 1, in that last sentence you referred to, that scope, contract April 15th corresponds with the original annual report date required by the Division of Water, which has now been extended as a result of the COVID-19.
Okay, so in the scope of work, it talks about an annual report, then it says Stantec will assist in the preparation of the annual report for 2021. And then it says they will submit a draft and do several things. Is Stantec really preparing the report?
They are. They are compiling the information. So the city and the county provide them with certain elements of information. So the solid waste and the report that you heard this evening, that's part of the analysis or part of the submittal to Division Water. Information submitted to me by the Franklin County Road Department as it relates to tree and limb removal, ditch line cleaning, dead animal removal. All that information is part of the compiled documentation submitted for this annual report. So we just push the information to Stantec. They compile it in the required Division Water format for us. The consultant also attends meetings on our behalf and corresponds directly with the Division Water and the MS4 coordinator at the state level to assist us with compliance. And they also provide training for both the city and the county.
Right, I think all those things were noted. I just found it to be odd language where it says that they will assist in the preparation because they're actually doing the prep. On the following.
Yeah, they actually are doing the prep.
Yeah, on page 2 of 7 of that document at the top, the first bullet at the top, references an annual report for 2019. Is that a typo? Does that mean 2020?
Well, I think that's year ending 2019,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken. Now, Laura.
But this document goes,
Arthur,
has a different time frame, so I'm just trying to make sure that we're covering everything we have to cover. That's all.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's kind of like your income tax, where you turn in your 2019 taxes in April 15th, 2020.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just trying to make sure that this covers us thoroughly. And then, so I noticed also on that page 2, under task 2, for the scope of work revisions, where it says Stantec will meet with the city to discuss the annual reporting process. But since the agreement's with the city and the county, does the county have any kind of role in this when they meet on that?
Always, yes. And help me track that down if you don't mind, so I could look at it.
So
with
again,
you.
that is on page 2, task 2,
Yeah.
where it talks about scope of work in the very beginning of that paragraph. Stantec will meet with the city to discuss. And I'm just presuming, for some reason, we meet with them as well, but it's not a requirement. So is the county, just trying to make sure that all parties know what's happening. That's the main thing. Because I'm finding more and more communication is such a key element that is a swing and a miss a lot of times. And I just want to make sure the county is right there at the forefront, hearing it verbatim coming from the vendor, not filtered through someone else at a later date.
Yes, thank you. That's a great catch. You see everything else in that task 2 says city/county, and that first sentence there only says city. So great catch. I will ensure that, if approved, that Laura and Stantec do get that revised. And I would like to assure the court that I am present and have a voice in every decision that's made specific to the consultants and the tasks that we ask them to do. And Katie Beard, the City of Frankfort Public Works Director, has been great to work with. And Laura Kurtz is very understanding and understands the role that the city and county have and our responsibility. So thank you for catching that, and I will note that as a revision to send to the consultants.
All right, Robert.
I'm looking at
no,
page, I'm sorry, do you want, I can stop and then we can come back to mine if you.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Let's continue on.
All right, if you look on page 4 of the document, Robert, under task 5, where it talks about construction inspection training. And the beginning of that states, with the addition of new staff. So, who are they referred to? I'm just trying to get at, or does it mean when and if the county brings new staff in, they will immediately be trained to bring them up to speed very quickly on this knowledge?
Well, it does mean if we bring on new staff. At the time this was written, I was the only staff member for stormwater inspections. So I had specifically asked the consultant to provide a one-on-one training with a new staff member who had not yet been appointed. So I just wanted to state it in this document that when I bring on new staff, there will be some direct one-on-one training, because otherwise,
right.
University of Kentucky College of Engineering provides the training on behalf of the Division of Water under the KEPSI program, but that's only conducted once a year. So currently, my new staff member, Mr. Judah, has not been certified through the KEPSI program, so I've asked Stantec or I've asked Laura to make sure that that's part of the agreement that when I get a new staff person, that they will provide that training directly so I can get them in the field.
Right, so you see exactly where I'm going with Ben, so I'm just trying to make sure that Ben has access to this training, because how long has Ben been with us? That sounds terrible. How long has Mr. Judah been with us now?
Just over a year.
And so will he get the so having him in that chair for a year now, I really want to make sure that he is equally equipped, because we hope to have lots of things for planning and zoning to do, and we want to make sure that our staff is focused 100% on planning and zoning activities and able to carry those out. So I'm just trying to figure out how we get that accomplished, like you're saying.
Yes, you are correct. And Ben was scheduled for the CAPC training course last week in Lexington, and unfortunately it got canceled because of the coronavirus. So if this document gets executed, I will immediately reach out to Laura, let her know that Ben's training, his certified training got postponed, and should she come in. Now, Ben did attend the overall city-county staff. No, I take that back. He was not part of that. I attended the joint city-county annual training. But if approved tonight, I will ask Laura to come in and train Ben directly, which includes in the field, boots on the ground, construction site inspection.
Absolutely, and that's the best kind. That is, hands-on is the best kind. So with that in, when it talks in task 6 under municipal facilities training, that first sentence where it talks about that Stantec's going to develop training materials for display, is that at the road department? It says it's going to put those on display at a county maintenance facility. Where is that?
Well, in general terms, it would include the road department, the parks department, a street department, the maintenance department, because stormwater management, this phase 2 program not only includes construction and soil and erosion control, but it also includes the handling of chemicals. So that's why Lakeview Park, as well as the parks, as well as the road department are involved in this program because there is fuel containment, chemical containment, chemical handling, and all of those things. So it all plays one big role. They would be posted in those different departments.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And then it looks like I have another. No, that's it.
All right.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I do have one other. It says the contract. Basically, it says that you're gonna meet like 7 times and draft reports and do a logo contest and some material. So we're adding a $10,000 addendum to the grant, to this contract, or we're still operating under the original $15,000 and we have a balance of 10 to pay on. I'm just trying to understand that part of it.
Well, let's see, and could you refer to which table you're looking at? Are you on which page are you on? I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just saying in general, when you look at the work that's to be completed, it says several things, like you're gonna have meetings, and they're gonna draft a report, and they're gonna participate, get the logo contest materials developed, and that type of thing. So all I'm trying to figure out is if we are still within the original agreement and we're still paying off the balance of that with the 10,000, or this is an additional 10,000 to take us through 2021. That's all I'm trying to figure out.
Okay, yes, thank you. No, this 10,000 would be for 2021.
Thank you.
Now, yes, let me clarify a little bit. Last year, I did do a budget amendment, and I think the treasurer, if she's still on the line, could confirm this. I did do a small line item transfer within my budget for the stormwater program because I think we had trimmed it back slightly. And so I don't know if we'll need to do that again this year, but I'm keeping the numbers very, very tight. So I still feel that 10,000 is going to be very close, as long as I don't ask the consultant to do anything extra. I do want to just advise the court of one thing, Squire Sebastian, that you mentioned, and that's specific to the logo. If the city and the county are able to establish an identity by virtue of the logo, then what solid waste department can assist us in that public outreach by displaying that logo in their message, because the Division of Water MS4 coordinator said, while yes, solid waste, and stormwater management, and stormwater quality are related, you currently don't have a connection. There's nothing that ties those two together. And so that's, I request, both the city and the county requested that logo, and the public involvement of students in the schools be included in this new contract so that we can bridge that gap.
Have you talked with Brittany about that, Robert?
I can't recall a direct conversation. I may have in passing. I did talk to Blair about it directly when she was with us.
Yeah.
This has been going on for quite a while. We have, we've had several discussions, both the city and the county and our consultant, about, do we want it to be elementary school? Do we want it to be middle school? Do we want high school? We want to be as inclusive as possible. Do we do city and county?
Yeah.
But it's important that we get education involved, community involvement, and an identity.
We can do that, Robert, if you would, give me a holler sometime next week, and we'll get on the phone with Brittany, all three of us on the phone together, and start logistics on that.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right,
Michael has a question.
okay.
So Robert, would that be an amendment to this year's budget or last year? You know what I mean?
I would hope that that there would be minimal budget impact, if we end up with a logo, because of the schools being out and such. It's likely to fall within next year's budget.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and we want to make sure we get into the teachers' programming as well.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions about item 10?
Didn't appear to be.
Huh?
It doesn't appear to be.
Okay, Robert, will you go ahead? Well, before we go on, Squires, just for expediency's sake, you call Robert all the time, so if you have a lot of questions or you have some concerns on items on the agenda, you've had 2 days. You can call him and clear some of this stuff up. But anyway,
Luckily, we've had a good connection here.
yeah, and that's another issue. Thank you, Squire. You're exactly right, because who knows where this is going to end up going over time. So, Robert, you've got another issue that Squire Moore has requested, and those of us that drive out that way is greatly needed. You want to talk about street light?
Yes, sir. So, I received a request to add a street light at the intersection of Bridgeport Road and Louisville Road. It's a very skewed intersection, and it's very dark at night. It's within the plant board service area, so I reached out to plant board engineering, and they did an investigation and analyzed it and determined that a new pole and an LED light would be appropriate for the illumination of that intersection to increase safety. Since it is an LED light and there is service in the area, the cost would be $3.62 per month, 3.62 per month, and any future maintenance of the light or the pole would be the responsibility of the plant board. So I would recommend approval of this. I think it's been it's a great idea, and I appreciate Squire Moore bringing it to the court.
Okay.
Michael has a question.
So Robert, just real quick, so there's no construction cost, just the monthly fee?
No.
Well, there is a cost, construction cost, $2,593.13. Now, the letter is standard from the plant board, in that they requested to be paid in advance. If approved by the court, I always send a letter to the plant board general manager requesting that we pay it once the construction is complete, which they've always honored. So I think it's a good price. And
I'm just curious, on this sheet here, it says financial impact, and it doesn't have that on here. So, do you have that in your budget or something, or?
Oh, it's in your packet.
I believe each magistrate has it in their budget for
it's in our packet.
a certain number of street lights.
It's in the magistrate budget.
It's in our packet. I just turned.
No, he's talking about is it, the $10,000 that's in there for, there's $12,000, I think, for lights or something in the budget. That's what he's talking about in the budget.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions? Any other questions?
JW raised his hand. JW.
Yeah, Robert, you said each magistrate has money for streetlights?
We did.
Well, I think there's a general line item for magistrates to request streetlights.
You did till now, I took it off.
I'm not sure where that is. I think I've ever seen it. And I'm sure I analyzed it. But
John. It's not, we took that out last year.
Yeah, it's not.
We took that out last year.
Yeah, it's not in this budget, I can tell you.
Yeah, we took that out last year. We'll find $2,500 for it. I'll work with Susan on that.
You know, I do believe that it is important for the magistrates to request streetlights at specific locations that may have been overlooked in the past.
I don't think we've ever turned one down.
Per year.
Yeah, this is a really bad place. I usually don't bring these up, but this is, when it's raining, you can't hardly see to turn in there.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever turned one down
Good night.
when a magistrate has brought one to us. Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you, Robert. Have a good evening. Thank you for being with us and informing us what's with the storm water project. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, and please, don't hesitate anyone to contact me on my cell phone, 229-9411.
Ho, you're on the air. Okay, all right.
That's fine, that's fine.
Okay,
We've
all
been giving them out, we've had to.
right. Thank you, Robert.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Miss Susan, are you on the line?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Welcome.
Wonderful. The item on the agenda, I believe, is cash transfer for the jail and fire fund. We budget each year funds from the general fund to cover shortfalls in the jail and the fire fund. We've already had previous cash transfers to cover those, part of those shortfalls. We just do them periodically as needed. This estimate, again, is being done based on a quarter that we're just now ending, which I have calculated to be about $720,000 needed for the jail fund and about $700,000 needed for the fire fund. Those items are both have available budgets to receive and make those transfers today. That's the formality of it. Now, there have been a lot of discussion, a lot of questions about where we stand financially and about forecast of the impact on our reserves. Certainly, there are a lot of unknowns right now, but there are some knowns. In particular, we all know that the April 15th deadline for filing taxes has been, for filing income taxes has been moved to July 15th. That will impact our net profits line most likely. We were gearing up for obviously a big receipt of all of those funds on April 15th. It was a very busy time of the year. Now that's being pushed out into the middle of the summer, which is in our next fiscal year. Net profits is always a very difficult line to try to budget for. It's a moving target. If you look at our trends over the years are up and down and all around. That's based on tax codes and lots of nuances. That's a very difficult one to identify. But nevertheless, a budgetary impact of that will be likely to be a $200,000 shortfall in the current fiscal year. Now, to what extent that money gets pushed out as an increase in our next fiscal year, that should still happen if that in fact was going to be a good number. The, of the op tax impact, we are just ending the quarter ending 3/31 next Tuesday, and certainly March will have an impact or reflect those decreases in payroll. That money is due by April 30th. That deadline has not changed. The payroll taxes will still be due on the regular schedule for the quarter ending 3/31. So it's primarily the final month that will have the biggest impact. This is also the first quarter that we had anticipated seeing changes or impacts in our state payroll based on the movement to the new state office building downtown. So we will be looking at the state payroll in that light, but it may also it may muddy the water now with the virus impact. One of the other items that we know, we've heard from the jail extensively tonight and about the decrease in the state revenue based on versus the budget amount. That is in fact down. We will not meet our budget on the revenue side for the state prisoner payments. And on the flip side of that, we will have an increase in our medical costs. We're going to need another $80,000, it looks like, to finish the year to cover medical services due to the population increase charges, as well as the impact of covering 24/7 medical care at the jail. So we will have to have a budget transfer, and possibly it's looking like we may have to have an amendment to the jail budget before the end of the year in order to cover the shortfall if there aren't sufficient funds in the other line items to cover that piecemeal. And I don't know that there are going to be enough at this point, or that we'll have enough revenue to because of the loss of the state revenue. The other knowns that are, of course, that our election has been moved out. I do not know if that will increase our costs. We have budgeted, I think, around $41,000 left for election expenses. If there are additional costs associated with that, certainly we'll have to cover those to provide for any special circumstances associated with conducting the election. Just a comment that the state subsidy of that the 40,000 that we put out, the state gives us 8,800 towards that. That we will not have that receipt in this fiscal year because the timing of the election would push the subsidy, which comes 2 or 3 months after the election from the state. So we will not have that state subsidy and possibly additional cost on the election. Those are just a few of the knowns and unknowns. I know there were some questions along, ask Susan this, ask Susan that. This format obviously is very challenging, and I'm just now trying to come to terms with it myself with the new computer, and I don't necessarily have all the reference material in front of me, but I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that the court has.
Sherry, do you have a question?
Always. Susan, I've reached out, and I've reached out in other meetings that we've had electronically with all the magistrates to talk about what we think, how this is going to impact our reserve funds going forward. And I think you've tried to do an extremely admirable job in uncertain waters here to give us just a first blush of what this is going to be. Because I think we all realize we're going to have to dip into those reserves. How deeply, we do not know at this point. So as we look at the budget request soon be coming in, we're going to have to look at that in that same light. which is why we begged the question, I think, earlier of trying to look at a quasi-governmental entity before we look at our own services that we have to provide. So I think we're trying to make sure we're doing our due diligence on this and make sure that we're covering all the bases that we are required to cover, through the oaths that we took to sit on this fiscal court.
Do you have a question, Sherry, or is that just a statement? I'm sorry. Is there a question for Susan?
Well, I think the point being, Susan's done an admirable job of trying to at least give us a first blush here. I think it would be unfair for me to ask her, well, how deeply we're going to have to dip into reserves, but I think that's the question on everybody's lips.
Squire and Court, I will say this. We've just ended, we're just ending our third quarter. And typically, this is just the beginning of the time that I can get some reliable estimates and forecasts for the final quarter and towards how we're going to end the year. And now we have certainly a new problem in the mix. I will be working hard on still making those estimates about the end of the year. As you all have learned, that and saw under much discussion during the last budget period, that it is our norm that every single budget period that I've been a part of and everyone that I saw before, the budget was balanced with reserves. Now, ultimately, after the actual performance of the receipts and expenditures for the year, did we have to use those reserves? We also had a historical a spreadsheet that showed, in fact, where we had ended in the black in years and a few years ended in the red, and again, depending on the timing of receipts and the timing of expenditures. And a large part of that was due to our road programs. We do know, and I failed to mention, we have already agreed on a program that will have a $400,000 plus expenditure, if that still comes to fruition for paving, that is reimbursable by the state. Now, again, the reimbursements lag. You have to have money up front to be able to front these programs and perform these services. In a disaster, this comes very clear. In a county that has some reserves, has a better position to react and respond and continue services without too much community disruption, because we have a cushion to be able to act on our own money while we're waiting to receive any assistance from the state or federal government. As you all know or may not know, all of these policies are being developed right now. You probably received the KCO notice that had just the quick summary of the federal rule about the extended emergency sick leave and the extended emergency family medical leave. And you probably saw that there was a big question highlighted on our county organization website that said we don't know how or if the counties will be reimbursed for that special sick leave money. But we are required by the Department of Labor under this order to honor that, and for the 2 weeks that the county attorney mentioned. We are not the city. We, as a county, we are an extension of the state. We are an arm of the state, so we're more closely aligned to the state and the way things happen at the state than a corporation such as the city is. So once again, as much as we value our people, we're also very sensitive to the taxpayers that are we're taxpayers and we're workers here for the county, but we have to be very realistic about what we can afford to do up front. We have to, I don't know the impacts on the unemployment. I'm concerned, and as Betty Jo briefly alluded to, we have been very fortunate over the years at Franklin County, where we've had a very stable workforce, and we've had very, 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 very little, and comparatively relative to other counties, expense associated with unemployment costs. This could change drastically, and that will be a budgetary impact in our upcoming budget, where those unemployment claims, once again, there may be some provision at some point for recovery for the county or for the government agencies to recover, but most of the recovery verbiage is going towards private industry right now, not towards other forms of government. So, to bank on, well, we can spend it because we're going to get it back is not a really a safe bet, nor is it, a very timely bet. So I'm concerned. I'm doing my best to monitor everything. I had a conversation I'll say BC, we've got a new, we went BC, AD, now we're back to BC. That's before Corona, so we're back in BC. So 2020 BC, worst form of March madness I'll ever know, I think, in my lifetime. I had a conversation with the PVA about our assessments, and she was, they were on track for that quadrant review. Now, I don't know what impact they've had as far as any delays, but April 1st is a deadline for the PVAs to report, their preliminary figures to the state. And every year I use those preliminary figures for my preliminary or estimate for fiscal court's real property revenue based on the existing property rate. So I'm hopeful that we'll still have some number there. It may be some delay. So I'm trying to stay in tune with all the concerns. The interest rates certainly are a concern of ours because we're already obligated for a $875,000, call it $900,000, fire apparatus with additional equipment associated with it. So we're going to be in the market to borrow money for that, for sure. As far as any other programs with the energy audit expenditures, I don't know what impact this has on it. All I can say is I will be working very hard to try to capture the intent of fiscal court for where the dollar amounts that they want to commit to services, and to the extent that we already have them now, and a continuation of those.
Okay, Susan, thank you. Does you have something
I
else?
think Michael has a question. I see a couple of fingers, Michael.
Does anybody have a question for Susan?
JW does. So,
You call it.
JW, go ahead.
Yeah, Susan, thank you so much. You've got a monumental task ahead of you. As we discussed ad nauseum last year with the budgets and the budget proposals, I was hoping that you may be working with all the departments to try to get them on a uniform format when they give us their proposals. It was hard. We spoke about it last year, try to get everybody on the same page so we have the same format that we're looking at. So I don't know if that's even been an issue, but I was hoping it would be something we could work on this year.
It has been an issue, and the jailer is the first one to submit. The jailer had a special presentation, and of course now with the disconnect and being able to do that electronically, maybe there's some bump there. But all of the offices have been asked to basically compile a spreadsheet format by line item, with that line item, the label description of that line item, their budget request compared to their last year's budget request, and what the increase or decrease is in that, along with a narrative for each line item for explaining the changes and or specifics of what the line item covers. So everyone has been asked to do that in a spreadsheet format that can be interactive if we have the interactive capability. Now, I'll just throw in my own 2 cents worth of comment here, but it's a $20,000 comment, Blackburn, that I had been looking at, before I got preoccupied with the disaster, but looking at several software applications that I thought would be wonderful for multiple reasons. It would provide what we call citizen-centric information and data and graphics that would have a great deal of transparency of our budget, that would communicate to the public the services that we're doing, that would incorporate our existing budget and data information on a live basis through our existing software. One of the products was an extension of our existing finance software. One of the products that is out there that I can't remember the name of it, but it was very, very well known. But it would also have an aspect that each department would be able to, would enter into a required format system on their own, that their requests, and then it could be shown graphically, it could be shown in various analytical methods. It would be a wonderful tool to have, and it would certainly help some of the departments that we have that don't otherwise utilize the information on a day-to-day basis, but they would then have access. It would broaden the access of our finance software. Which in fact, Squire Blackburn, I have to remind the court that we're only 2 years. Last year was really our first year into the new finance software, where it was available to the jail and the road and the fire on a daily basis. So we have had preliminary meetings with the fire and the road, and they have been asked, and they have to again abide by the format within the Excel spreadsheet format that I identified, that is basically a grid based exactly on the line items as they come from our finance software.
With also, Susan, a narrative that the court asked for too. They're all presenting their budget with the Excel, and they're presenting narrative accounts of their expenditures.
Thank you for that.
You got it.
Hey, Judge, can I say something real quick?
You may, sure.
Susan, thank you very much. And I think like Squire Blackburn said, you probably got the toughest job right now. I have 1,000 questions, but it's a moving target. Nobody knows, but I appreciate you kind of giving us a breakdown. Judge, I'd like to ask you a question. Would it be possible for the fiscal court to write our governor, Andy Beshear, and maybe talk about how Franklin County, because the state is located here, how we get dinged with the property taxes and things like that. Is there a reason that the occupational taxes have to leave for the next 2 months? I'm wondering if that would be possible, and I probably didn't state that right, but.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm following what you just said. Where are the occupational taxes leaving for the next 2 months?
Well, for instance, Transportation Department has sent out forms that are due by Friday, asking everybody who's working at home what county they're working in, and they're going to pull it and put it in their counties. So as of last night, there were 750 people that are working at home from the Department of Transportation. Now, how many of those live in Frankfurt or outside of Frankfurt? I don't know. I would strongly say probably 50%. So we're getting ready to lose a ton of revenue. And I'm wondering if
who'd you say was asking
letter.
for this? I'm sorry, Squire. Did you say Frankfurt Transit? So this is the city asking for this?
State Transportation.
State Transportation. Okay.
And it's going to go on with every department in the state.
Wow.
And so I'm asking if we could write a letter requesting that that for the next couple of months, just because somebody's working at home outside of the county, that we don't get dinged on it. That makes sense.
Yeah, I'll write the letter. Normally the letter comes from the judge. I'll write it and I'll send you a copy of it. Is that fair enough? And I guess you're saying if transportation's asking, then it needs to go to Jim Gray, Transportation Secretary.
No, Judge, I think it's the whole state. I just happened to talk to somebody in transportation.
Okay.
Scotty has a question. Scotty?
Well, wait a minute, before you ask Scotty, let me make sure that, okay, so what you're saying is the state is going around to all of the counties throughout the state and asking where people live?
They're asking who is working from home right now, the ones that work in Frankfurt. And if they don't live in Frankfurt, they want to know what county they live in so they can pay them the occupational tax while this is going on.
Okay, so this is a temporary hold, okay.
Right, but my fear is if these agencies realize that people can stay at home and work and do the same type of work, maybe they don't need all the office space. I think it's a bigger problem. I think people are adapting to our situation and we don't know the ramifications.
But in our argument, we would say that the transportation employees probably more live in the county than the city.
Can we take a time out and let me see if there's some part of the agenda that refers to any of the discussions that you all are engaging in right now?
Okay.
Because I'm pretty sure this is a special meeting.
You're right.
And there's some liberties that can be taken, but, I mean, come on.
Okay.
There's an agenda here that needs to be followed 2 hours later after the meeting just started.
Squire Muller, call me tomorrow or first of next week and let's talk more about it, okay?
Scotty,
Wait a minute.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Scotty had his hand up, but his screen's blank, so I'm not sure if he's still there.
Ask him, maybe. He left?
Yeah, he left. I think he'll be right back.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right, is everything, if we discussed everything with Susan? Susan, have you discussed the treasurer's, the receipt of the treasurer's report and the payment of bills? Are there any questions for Susan on payment of bills?
And I think Kim's on there too.
Kim, are you on there, Kim?
I don't think.
Kim's not, okay.
Oh,
All
I
right,
thought she was, okay.
okay. All right, if you all don't mind, let's, hold on.
Sherry has a question.
I'm asking the question and I don't know how to bring this up. I have had some communication from constituents wondering if the Duncan Road issue is going to be on an agenda soon.
I can't,
And so
Rick,
So I don't know when to ask it.
okay, I don't think you can ask it. Rick, what do you say?
That is not on the agenda today, and I believe that the court has been made aware of why that given the virus issue, has been extended on the time.
Sherry, call me tomorrow next week and we'll talk.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Scotty is back. Scotty, did you have a question?
No, I'm good. They asked it.
Okay. If you all don't mind, let's just go right into the voting session. Since we're already going on 4 hours of work here. So if everybody's on, is everybody on? Okay, clerk, will you call the roll?
Yes. Squire Sebastian,
Here.
Squire Blackburn, Squire Muller,
Present.
Squire Tracy,
Here.
Squire Booth, Squire Moore,
Here.
Judge Wells.
Here. So, Squire Blackburn, can you hear us? Can you shake your head? Can you put up a sign and say, because we can't hear you?
He says yes.
Okay, all right, good deal. Okay, so I'm voting, Squire, thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay, would you stand for the pledge? Since you can't speak, Squire Blackburn, Squire Tracy, would you lead us in the pledge?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance
To the
To
flag
the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. All right, the first item on the agenda is authorization of approval of minutes from our special meeting of March 16th, 2020, and there was a correction on there. Okay. Any discussion?
So it's the corrected version, right, that we're voting on?
Yes, that would be the one we're voting on, Sherry.
Yep, okay. All right, the corrected without Squire Booth, thank you.
Yes.
All right, call the roll.
Well, I don't have a motion.
So, I'll make a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, you're right, sorry.
So,
The motion by Squire Booth. Okay, you get it, I don't know.
okay, so
Wheeler.
we had three of them. I'm gonna pick Michael.
Okay,
He'll
that's
hold his hand.
Okay. All right, call the roll.
Okay, Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Okay, Squire Blackburn.
Thumbs up.
He's not doing any. Okay. Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Yes.
Squire Moore.
Yes.
Judge Webb.
Yes. Next item is authorization to approve the 2021 budget for the, we're
So
not
you
doing
just
that.
wanna make that to receive, so we can note in the
Okay.
minutes that it was submitted.
So we just received that, right?
Good.
Do you need a motion to receive?
Well,
I make a motion, we receive the budget from the Capital Community Economic
Okay.
Industrial
Okay.
Development Authority.
Alright,
Is there a
I'll
second?
second.
Okay,
I'll
there's a
second.
second. Okay,
okay.
I say.
call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Yes.
Squire Muller.
Yes.
Squire Tracy.
Yes.
Squire Moore.
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to receive the 2020-2021 proposed jail budget. And we have received that. You've heard his draft, and it's only a draft of the
So
budget.
moved.
Okay, I need a second.
Sebastian, is there a second? Squire Moore,
Second. I still want to jump.
call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Yes.
Squire Blackburn.
Ask him again, keep asking.
Squire Blackburn. There's such a lag
I
with
think we need to do this.
Squire Blackburn.
That's a yes, I think.
Is that, I think he's trying to do a second. So,
Andrew, is there a
Up or
problem?
down?
What did you say?
I think
it's
we
on
need,
his end. So, Squire Blackburn, do you approve? He keeps doing a second.
just go
All right, go
on.
to the next one.
Well, I've gotta have his
No.
vote, to record his vote. Rick, can you help us out here? What, if,
Here, write him a note and just say,
JW, thumbs up to vote yes or thumbs down to vote no?
for item, what, not, for
I think we
item,
need to start doing this over the phone,
yeah,
like the,
for item,
yeah, we've lost him. He's froze. Oh,
for item 4.
he's shaking his head no, but. Can we move on without his vote? Rick,
Here,
they're gonna have to hold him.
yes or no, Blackburn?
He can't hear
He
us.
can't see me.
now he can't see
Can you
me.
see anybody?
Cameron, he's the only one, you're the only one he can see.
I'm talking to him, there's nothing I can do.
Well, here, write it, item 4, to up or down.
He won't be able to see it that far away.
I can hear you now.
Okay, so, are you a yes or a no on receiving the jail's proposed budget?
I vote to receive it, yes.
Okay, thank
If
you.
you'll just do a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
Yeah, I can't hear you.
Okay, so Squire Muller.
Yes.
I will if I can hear what you're saying.
Okay. Squire Tracy. That Squire Tracy's in the dark. I think it was a thumbs up. Yes. Okay, thumbs up. Squire Moore.
Yes.
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to approve a memorandum of agreement between the Commonwealth of Kentucky Department of Facilities and Support Services and the Franklin County Regional Jail to establish an agreement for work experience primarily in the area of construction for criminal offenders.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to approve a resolution authorizing the filing of an application for the 2021 Kentucky Pride Fund composting grant with the Kentucky Energy and Environmental Cabinet Division of Waste Management.
So moved.
JW, second. Squire Blackburn.
Okay, call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to approve a resolution authorizing the filing of an application for the 2020-2021 Household Hazardous Waste Management Grant Fund with the Kentucky Energy and Environment Cabinet.
So moved.
Second.
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 Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Moore.
Yes.
That was like, Squire.
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to approve a resolution authorizing the filing of an application for the 2020-2021 Kentucky Pride Fund Recycling Grant Funds with the Kentucky Energy and Environmental Cabinet.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Okay,
Okay,
second
I
by
got-
Squire Moore.
I had more than more.
Okay,
Okay.
call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
okay, Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to approve a resolution authorizing the filing of an application of a grant with the United States Department of Homeland Security and the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, you gotta move the second, call the roll.
Okay, Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to approve the assignment of a contract Phase 2 Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System MS4 program.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to add a street light to the county multiplier by the Frankfurt Plant Board at the intersection of Bridgeport Road and Louisville Road on US 60.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Squire Sebastian,
She didn't hear you.
Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to approve the cash transfer of $1,420,000 for the fiscal year 2019-2020.
So moved.
Second.
Moore. Okay. Squire Sebastian, Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes. Next item is authorization to receive the treasurer's report.
So moved.
Okay, I got Squire Muller to make the motion. Who's second? I need a second.
Second.
I have you making the
Second.
motion, Squire Muller. Okay, Squire Sebastian, I have you as a second. All right, Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Yes, next item is payment of the bills. Are there any bills that you don't want to be paid?
Okay.
Hearing none, bills will be paid. Next item, last item is authorization to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. I need a second.
Blackburn, I heard.
Blackburn, Squire Blackburn, did you second?
Yes.
Now he can't hear me, I think. I need a second.
Fine.
Second.
Okay. Squire Sebastian,
Yes.
Squire Blackburn,
Yes.
Squire Muller,
Yes.
Squire Tracy,
Yes.
Squire Moore,
Yes.
Judge Wells.
Before we adjourn, and the general public, you've watched this, and you've seen local government in action, and you can see that we're doing our best under these very trying times. The video conferencing is something that is it's something we're not used to, and it's something I'm sure you're not used to seeing. We're doing our best that we can from the Franklin County Fiscal Court standpoint to present you your government in action. And we thank you for watching and appreciate that your patience as we go through this ordeal of trying to get people heard and seen and statements made. But most importantly, we as a community are going through a crisis, and it is a huge crisis like we've never seen before. So I ask all of you, please, please, please take this seriously and practice your social distance, practice washing your hands, wear your gloves, wear your mask, do what you need to do to keep yourself safe. We must continue this, and also be kind to others. Please be kind and be patient. And one other, just on a light note, we've started, and many of you have turned to our Facebook, and we appreciate it. We're showing you little teddy bears, little stuffed animals in windows across the community. And I'm sure that Squire Moore someday will put a little teddy bear or a little stuffed animal in his window. But everybody do that just for fun. So when you're bored to death and you can ride with your family in a car away from somebody, you can see those little stuffed animals. God bless all of us, and be safe. And I vote yes to adjourn. Thank you for watching.